Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen throws a plate at our server, ends up getting arrested. I wasn't at my restaurant today when this happened, but I was there when we dealt with this woman for the first time. Background. About 2 months ago, a woman came into my restaurant and ordered our country fried steak breakfast. It says on the menu exactly what it is. It's a country fried steak, 2 eggs, bacon, 2 biscuits, and a full mug of sausage gravy. She gets about halfway through her plate of food and calls the server over. "Excuse me, but does this gravy have pork in it?" "Yes, ma'am, and so does the bacon." "What? I can't have pork. You tricked me because you knew I don't eat pork. You are a devil. God forgive you." I want to point out that there was no outward indication that she couldn't eat pork. She then proceeds to start throwing up right there in the dining room, after which she threw her plate at our hostess. I came out of the back with my dessert chef. We're both pretty big dudes, so we're security in addition to our main roles. The lady sees 2 big dudes making a beeline for her table and decides she doesn't want to wait around and see what we have to say. She bolts from the restaurant. I drive the hostess to the emergency dental clinic and then bring her and the security footage over to the police to file a report. 2 months go by and nothing. She doesn't get caught. My hostess is not getting justice. Until last night. Lady walks right into the place and asks the hostess for a table. Mind you, this is the same server she threw the plate at. I don't know if she didn't recognize her or if she just thought she would get away with it. So the hostess sits her down, walks into the back, and calls 911. Lets them know there's a wanted criminal sitting in our restaurant. The look of shocked defeat on that lady's face when 4 uniformed officers walked in and headed straight for her table was so satisfying. I want to print out a still from the security tape and hang it on my office wall. I don't have any details on what charges she's facing, whatever her bail situation is, or anything like that, but she left the premises in handcuffs, so I'll call it a win. I'm just glad she was dumb enough to return to the scene of the crime. Am I the jerk for calling off my wife's birthday party after she lied to me? I'm prefacing this by saying that I, male 38, have a daughter, Sandy, who's 16, with an incredibly sensitive personality and loves to help people. We come from a well-off background compared to her friends, and so for the past few months, she's been doing some charity work. She's cut her hair off and donated it to cancer patients, pawned her things off and sold some of her expensive clothes, shoes, and/or gave them away to help out her friends and other families. Now she wears thrift shop clothes, which is something my wife isn't so happy with. She thinks that Sandy was and is painting a bad picture of us as being neglectful and giving a false impression to people that we're poor, when in fact we're doing well financially. I admit my wife is all about appearances, and recently I started noticing that she's been excluding Sandy from events and gatherings because of how she dresses. I talked to her about it, and she said it was all in my head. But last week was my wife's birthday. We celebrated at a restaurant, and I asked my wife to get Sandy and meet me there. Although at first she hinted that if Sandy refuses to dress properly, then she wouldn't bring her. But I told her that if she didn't bring her, then we'd have an issue and the party would be called off. We waited, and then I saw my wife walk into the restaurant by herself. I was mad, I'm not gonna lie. I asked her where Sandy was, and she told me that she didn't feel like coming, even though she talked about how excited she was for this party. I just had this gut feeling that my wife was lying, so I texted Sandy, and sure enough, my wife gave her an ultimatum, saying either she had to wear something that matches our class, or she wouldn't be allowed to come to her birthday where her friends and family are gathered. I went and called Sandy outside, and she was crying. I was furious. I walked into the restaurant and picked up an argument with my wife and told her family and friends exactly why Sandy wasn't there. My wife looked shocked. She started arguing with me, and I ended up calling off the entire event and having everyone else leave early. My wife literally started yelling at me at the restaurant, so I took my stuff and went home. She got back and kept yelling at me for ruining her birthday and making a scene and humiliating her in front of her friends and family. She said that Sandy was acting stubborn and that's on her, but I told her she acted unreasonably by excluding her like that. Sandy was crying because of it, and I felt this was too big to look over, despite my wife saying that it wasn't a big deal and ruined her birthday for no reason. She went to stay with her family and won't even reply to my texts. She just reads them but doesn't respond, probably expecting me to apologize for what happened. Am I the jerk? Did I go too far? Not the jerk. Your wife is, though. Not just in this situation, but she honestly just sounds bad regardless. Your daughter is wonderful, honestly a great human being, and everyone should be glad there's still people like that. Your wife is clearly showing her true and snobby colors. Not the jerk. Your wife is definitely wrong for all of that, and I'm glad that the wonderful Sandy has a great parent she can rely on and knows will love her no matter what. A little humiliation can go a long way. Calling her out was the right thing to do and will prevent her from painting a false narrative about the whole situation. The next thing OP should text her is, I'm never going to apologize for teaching my daughter to stand up to a bully. We can move forward and have a calm conversation about your behavior and why it's unacceptable, or you can stay gone. Not the jerk. Your wife is not only a jerk, but she's doing her darn hardest to force your daughter to be too. Your daughter is dressing this way and doing these things for moral reasons she feels make her a good person. She also seems to be in line with how you taught her to be, not to put her wealth in others' faces. Your wife doesn't like your value set or the value set of your daughter. She's concerned with appearances in front of strangers, status, and class. It makes me wonder how your wife acts to people less fortunate to her in public, quite honestly. You are a papa bear defending his kid from a woman who doesn't love her. You did the right thing. Not the jerk, but are you confident Sandy is okay? Charity is great, but it sounds quite extreme and like it's all happened very recently, last few months. Someone getting rid of all their stuff can be a sign that they aren't doing so well from a mental health perspective. Hopefully that's not the case for Sandy, but it would be remiss of me to not mention this possibility. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If you canceled my birthday, Reddit boy, you'd need a new head. Investor wants to buy my house way over market value? Okay, no problem. So I'll start by saying that this story is not mine. It's my parents' next-door neighbor of 20 years. Background. My parents and their neighbor bought homes in an up-and-coming part of Florida 20 years ago, talking half-acre lots with 2,500 square foot homes for like $130,000. Our neighbor's home was a little smaller than my parents', no pool, and over the 20 years, the only thing they've done to the house was a new roof. Nothing else had been changed. Everything was still the original. Appliances, paint, AC unit, cabinets, tile, and carpet. I wish I could say she took care of it and never needed to change things, but that wasn't the case. Our neighbor's house looks 20 years old. Well, she is a widow, and the house is huge for just her, so she decided to sell and take advantage of the market. She listed it for $400,000, despite her never having put a penny into it. The house goes on a bidding war, and the top bidder is an investor from California. She offers to pay $30,000 over asking, pay the closing costs, and can do it same day. Cue malicious compliance. The investor woman had two stipulations. Our neighbor takes the house off the market immediately, and she turns over the key to her management company with the cash for the home held in escrow until the key was turned over and our neighbor's side of the paperwork was done. Now, our neighbor was upfront with this woman and the state of this home and asked if she wanted to have our management company come look at it first. The woman says, "No, I'm renting the house and it doesn't need to be painted. Just pull it from the market." This woman essentially bought the home for about $450,000 when it was all said and done. So our neighbor immediately goes to the management company office with her realtor, signs her paperwork, hands over the key, and gets the check for the home. A few days later, our neighbor gets a call from investor lady. She is irate. The house is in disarray, in needs of a paint job ASAP, new appliances and flooring at the least. She demands that our neighbor paint the house. She won't take ownership of the home until that is done, to which our neighbor responds to her, "It's not my home anymore. It was signed over to you and the check was handed to me and cleared. That house is no longer my problem. Enjoy." This story all came about because yesterday my parents called our old neighbor. There was a for sale sign on the house again and we were confused. Our old neighbor promptly showed up and told us the story, and we were all laughing hysterically because the woman has it listed for $430,000, which anyone with eyes to tour it would never pay. And even if she did get it, she'd still be losing a ton of money. Who doesn't love a story when greedy investors trying to inflate the market lose and lose big? Am I the jerk for not helping my girlfriend's son when he got stuck lifting weights? I'm a 36-year-old man, and my girlfriend is 34. I'll call her Jenny. She has a son who is 14 from a previous relationship. I'll call him George. Jenny and I get along well in basically all but one department, George. As bad as this is going to make me sound, I really don't like him. But Jenny's rose-tinted glasses for him might as well be painted with a coat of black at this point. She legitimately cannot stop enabling his bad behavior, let alone recognize it for what it is. This friction has only gotten worse as she moved in with me 2 months ago because they could no longer afford to live alone. I have a basement gym that I have poured over $7,000 into. It has multiple types of high-end barbells, a power rack, and various other equipment. In past days, I was a competitive powerlifter, and although I've scaled back a lot on that front, I still train very hard. When Jenny and George moved in, George started to use my home gym uninvited. I first warned him not to, but by lying through his teeth, he has consistently done it behind my back. I can tell because he leaves barbells loaded and equipment moved. I then put a lock on the door, which George broke down with a hammer. I then reinforced the door and put a new lock on, which George could not break. Jenny, however, insists on having a spare key to the basement, and I recently learned that she has been loaning it to George. She tried cleaning up after him, but I could tell. Since he and she are home during the day as he takes lessons online, plays Minecraft with the teacher muted, I can do nothing about it. Jenny won't return my key either. A couple of days ago, I got home from work and decided to hit the gym. Noticing the door open, I walked down the stairs, only to find George in the middle of a bench press set. As I watched him from the stairs, he went for one rep too many and got stuck. He was in no danger at any point because the barbell was low on his sternum, and plus it was only like 80 pounds. After 30 seconds of panic mode, he finally got the bright idea to dump the weight, to which I gave him a slow clap. I started to tell him that that's what happens when you work out alone, and he then shrieked at me red-faced. Then he insulted my strength, to which I responded that I'm not the one getting pinned under an 80-pound bench. He ran upstairs, basically in tears, and then told Jenny what I had said. Jenny is also furious at me, and they're both giving me the silent treatment. She says I should have handled the situation better, but I say I kind of did when I installed a heavy-duty lock and put a new lock on it. I'm going to be changing the lock tomorrow. Did I go too far with how I dealt with George here? If you don't like her son, I would end the relationship, to be honest. It's as simple as this. It'll never get better. Just tell them to leave. It's also about them not respecting your property. The entitlement of those two, not the jerk. And Jenny lying about it. OP is lucky those two were caught before anything serious happened. He could be in for a costly lawsuit. I really don't understand people who think they can separate a parent from their kid. They're a package deal, and the kid will always come first. And if a parent is willing to put their kid on the back burner for a relationship, is that someone you want to be with? No clue why he let them move in when he knows he doesn't like her son. A lot of people are saying a lot of different things on here, but in my opinion on dating single moms is if you don't like the kid, then you kind of have to end the relationship. It's super unhealthy for all three of you. Now, the little brat deserved it. I would have done the same, provided he was in no legitimate danger as you have stated. However, if you really can't stand him, if you don't want him in your space, then you have to ditch them both. Dating a single mom is a package deal. You can't just pick out what you want, her, then dispose of the rest, her kid. Honestly, bro, the kid always comes first, regardless of the situation. So if you have that much of an issue with him, then leave her. Not the jerk. I think you're the one viewing things through rose-tinted glasses. It's not just a matter of enabling him. Your girlfriend is using you. She's refusing to give you the spare key to your gym for the sole purpose of using it to violate your wish to not have him down there. This is beyond disrespectful, and now you have to change the lock again because she won't relinquish the key. Even better, she's punishing you with a silent treatment. Question: what happens when she demands the new key for the new lock you get? Will she keep giving you the silent treatment until you yield? This relationship isn't healthy. Am I the jerk for announcing the reason why I didn't invite my brother to my wedding and exposing him to the entire family? I, male 30, got married 2 weeks ago. I was married before, but it ended after I found out that my older brother Thomas, who's 34, was involved with my first wife. It was devastating because we were close and we had a great relationship. I also helped him so much while he was struggling, and seeing how he repaid me hurts me to this very day. I stopped talking to him, and mom and dad forced me to keep it a secret, and because I was too weak to argue with them, I just kept my own distance. Then I met my now wife. My family loved and embraced her as their own. Mom and Dad treat her like a queen, which helped repair and solidified my relationship with them. However, as the wedding was approaching, they told me they expected me to invite Thomas. I of course refused, but they kept guilting me about what the relatives and other guests would think and say when they didn't see Thomas there. I fought with them about it till the day of the wedding. Turned out, they'd invited him behind my back, but I found out and stopped them in time. They came to the wedding looking upset, asking what we were going to tell people when they asked about Thomas. I told them I'd take care of it. And what I did was take a moment while everyone was paying attention, grabbed the mic, and flat out announced this and said, "The reason I didn't invite Thomas to my wedding is because I was worried he'd steal my now wife just like he stole the first one." I said it playfully to not make it sound so tense, but most of the guests looked shocked and started mumbling when it went awkwardly quiet for a moment. Then we moved on, but I saw Mom and Dad walk out while looking at me grudgingly. Later, they started lashing out about how I had just exposed Thomas and caused him to be shunned by the entire family in the most hideous of ways. I told them that I already said I didn't want him there, yet they tried to push him on me repeatedly, saying, "What are people going to say?" So I told them the reason why he wasn't there in a playful way, but they, the guests, still got the message. Mom started yelling about how everyone will now look down on and shun Thomas. She called me pathetic and cruel for still punishing him and gradually ruining his life, despite him apologizing and still trying to reconcile. But in my opinion, some things are just unforgivable. We've been on horrible terms since then. Am I the jerk? My wife said at least now they're off my back about what people would say about not inviting him. Not the jerk. Your brother brought it on himself and your parents. Good grief. If that was how they repaid you in terms of repairing the relationship, then perhaps you're better off without them, and I don't often suggest no contact. By trying to keep it on the down low, they didn't condemn the cheating and fully expected OP to forgive him for it. It also suggests they care a lot about the public image the extended family sees, which is also a jerk move when it invalidates OP's feelings about his brother and ex-wife. Congratulations to you and your wife. Not the jerk. If they had respected your wishes, it wouldn't have gotten to that point. Inviting him behind your back is just wrong. I can see how they'd want you and your brother to have a relationship, but your brother destroyed that, and it's up to you when or if you ever want to have a relationship with him again. Also, it sounds like they're probably more concerned about the shame of people knowing what he did, which is also not your problem. Not the jerk. You just told the truth. You don't need to hide how you feel and what happened to protect your brother. Family secrets always create so much toxicity. Better to get him out early in my opinion. Good on you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his parents? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for not buying sodas for my girlfriend's siblings? My girlfriend, Jen, who's 19, and I, 19 male, are both done with school for the summer. She has a brother who's 13 and a sister who's 11. When her and I are going somewhere, like the beach or park, she wants to bring her siblings with us. She said if she doesn't take them fun places, they'll spend the whole summer sitting around their house. Jen isn't working right now, but I do. So if we do something that costs money, I pay. Sometimes it's annoying because our siblings don't say thank you or show any appreciation and basically act like it's my job or expected. Jen doesn't want me to tell their parents when they misbehave. The parents ask because she thinks that they won't want to spend time with her. So basically they can be as annoying as they want and nothing happens. Anyway, yesterday after work we went to the beach. They weren't listening and were acting up the whole time. We all brought a bottle of water along. I finished mine before we left. Both kids still had most of their water left. When we were in the car, I said I'd be right back and ran back to the pavilion to get soda from the vending machine. I got myself a Mountain Dew and gin a lemonade. They were like $4 each, so I definitely wasn't buying the kids one. When I got back to the car, I gave her the lemonade and she asked if I got them sodas. I said, no, they still have water left and I'm not rewarding their bad behavior. Besides, last time they had soda, they left them back there half drank. My car isn't their garbage can. She gave them some of her lemonade. After we dropped them off, she said it's not my job to parent them. I said I wasn't parenting them, but I wasn't buying them a reward for acting up all day. She said you can't withhold food and drink from a kid when they misbehave. I said they both still had water. If they were thirsty, they had something to drink. She said, you know all kids will want a soda over a water. That was mean to basically say, ha ha, you don't get none. You were being a bully to an 11 and a 13-year-old. I said, When I was a kid and misbehaved, then my parents wouldn't get me a treat. She said, "Yeah, your parents, but you're not their parent." I said, "No, but it's my money and not our money," and gestured between her and I didn't want to spend $8 on sodas that they wouldn't finish. She said I was being a jerk and wanted to go home, so I took her home. I don't have kids, so maybe I'm wrong, but when I was a kid, I didn't get rewarded for being a brat. Am I the jerk for not getting them a soda? Not the jerk. This is how you end up with other entitled bratty adults. Thanks for not rewarding their bad behavior, and you may want to examine the ways in which your girlfriend feels entitled. Not the jerk, and she's right. You're not their parents, so there's no reason you need to have them tag along anytime you want to do something with your girlfriend. You need to seriously reconsider if you want to be in this relationship and lay down an ultimatum. No more kids tagging along on your dates, and you certainly shouldn't pay a dime for them. If she doesn't like that, then you should consider ending things, because it doesn't sound like her family situation is compatible with you. Seriously, when your girlfriend says you're not their parents, she's so close to getting the point. So close. They're using you and taking advantage of you. Stand up for yourself. Not the jerk. Your girlfriend is the jerk for acting entitled to your hard-earned money. If she wants stuff bought for her siblings, either she or her parents can pony up. And 100%, you two are the adults in this situation and therefore can enforce the rules on the kids. Basic manners isn't too much to ask. Not the jerk. They're 11 and 13. That's old enough to know that they need to save their money to buy extra treats themselves on general principle. Never mind understanding that acting up means they'll miss out on fun stuff. If I were you, I'd be asking serious questions about whether you want to plan any kind of long-term future that involves kids with Jen, because she seems to have a much harder time saying no to things than she really should. Well, who do you think is the jerk? Opie or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Bro, you're 19 and you don't even have any kids. It's time to dump her. Karen hurls threats at me because I don't work at Target. This happened some years back when I was in middle school, but scrolling through this sub just reminded me of it, so I decided to tell it. When I was in middle school, my mom worked at a Target a few blocks away from my school. So when school let out, I would walk to the Target and wander around the store for a couple of hours till my mom got off work. My school had a uniform which was identical to the Target uniform, a red polo shirt and khaki pants. So this wasn't the first or last time I had been mistaken as an employee, but it was the first time anyone ever refused to take no for an answer when I told them I didn't work there. One day after school, I was doing my usual thing and poking around the store when this woman approached me and asked if I could open one of the checkout lanes since the lines at the other already open lanes were very long. Of course I couldn't do that because I didn't work there, and I told her as such. Now initially it wasn't an issue that she thought I worked there because I had helped her find a few items about a half an hour ago. Since I was there every day, I knew where everything in the store was, so when people asked where things were, I would go ahead and show them, as I did with this woman. However, after I told her that I didn't work there, now she got irritated and told me that I was lying because I was wearing the Target uniform. I told her that it was actually my school uniform, and again she accused me of lying and trying to slack off and said that I wasn't doing anything anyway, so I should just open the lane for her. At this point, I was taken aback and sort of stammering because I was a very nervous and timid kid back then, and I wasn't good with confrontation, especially with adults. I didn't know what to say, so I just shut down and started walking away, which wasn't the best idea, I know. To which she then started grabbing my arm and trying to pull me to the register while shouting at me and yelling that she would get me fired. At this point, I started tearing up, and she was starting to get the attention of other customers. A couple, I presume, came over and the man pulled her off of me while the woman went and got help. After someone came, I thanked the couple and headed to the bathroom to calm down, and as I was coming back out, I saw the lady surrounded by employees and trying to exit the store with a cart full of unpaid-for things, and saying that if no one would check her out to pay for her things, she would just take it without paying. I don't know what else happened because my mom had heard what happened and came and let me into the break room. Am I the jerk for wanting to report my pregnant boss and quit? I, 27 female, have been at my job for 11 months. In those 11 months, I've started school and reduced my work schedule significantly. When I told my boss I was going to school, she, who's 29, seemed excited. That was until she got pregnant. Then she opposed me working less because it would put a lot of stress on her and her baby. Still, I went to school with reduced work hours. She's in her second trimester and she makes everything at work about her pregnancy. She refuses to take out 2 small bags that weigh maybe 2 pounds because she's pregnant and it's too hot for a pregnant woman to go outside. She complains that soon she just won't do much because she's pregnant. If she has a doctor's appointment, she has to go to it, and we are expected to cover her, even if she didn't schedule them correctly. 2 weeks ago, my uncle passed suddenly, and his funeral was this past Monday. I let her know prior to her making the schedule, so she didn't schedule me, and she responded fairly annoyed, telling me to find coverage. I felt that was kind of messed up, as it was a funeral, but I found coverage anyway. Today, I had a kidney infection that landed me in the hospital. My husband texted my boss to let her know I was in the emergency room, and my boss, instead of seeing if I was okay, said, "So what? She's not coming in?" My husband told her most likely no, to which she didn't respond. Honestly, I was at my breaking point. My coworkers and I are so burnt out on picking up the slack that she never wants to do. It's her world and we just live in it. If we're sick, it's a problem. If she's sick, we're expected to be kind and understanding. We're human beings. Either way, I called her and snapped, saying I didn't want to work for a boss who didn't care if I lived or not. That I'm still a human being and things happen and it's not fair to treat someone like this. She hung up on me. I'm planning on reporting her to my higher-ups or HR and requesting a transfer. But honestly, I may just quit. Am I the jerk here? Edit. This probably doesn't matter, but when I started working there, I told her my husband and I were trying to have kids. It's been a really hard journey and a lot of appointments and negative tests. It's been difficult. She and her boyfriend have been together less than a few months and got pregnant on accident. I was happy for her, even when she was talking about how she felt like she should not have it because she didn't feel like the father would put in enough effort. A lot of the time, I feel like she's rubbing her pregnancy in my face. It is slowly making me resent her. Not the jerk. If your boss needs to take on less for her medical condition, the company needs to ensure proper staffing. You should not be made to feel guilty because you also have personal and medical needs. Not the jerk. Being pregnant does not excuse you from having empathy and being kind. You had a literal infection. You're not in the wrong here. Not the jerk. She's using her pregnancy as an excuse to not work. You should definitely report her to HR. Would I be the jerk for filing a restraining order on my neighbors? I, 28 female, moved back to my home state to take care of my grandparents' home when they moved into an assisted living apartment a few months ago. Shortly after moving, both of them passed due to illness. The home was put into my stepdad's name long before their passing due to some shady people who stole from them while they were still alive. Some of these shady people are my neighbors. Let's call them Chad and his wife Karen. They're both in their late 60s, early 70s. They tried to convince my grandfather, who had dementia, to sell, knowing he was not in the right mind. The home was not in my grandmother's and dad's name, so it fell through. So skip to me moving in and everything is fine. I live in a large country neighborhood where the closest grocery store is 45 minutes either way. It's by a lake and had a beautiful view of the forest. I say that because Chad cut down every tree he could get his hands on, some of ours even, while no one lived here. From the day I moved in, they both started coming over and asking to buy. It's not in my name yet. I told him we were not selling. Well, it turned into him asking me almost every day for 2 months or any time he saw me, until I asked him to leave me alone as we're not selling out of the family. I work full-time from home, 45 to 50 hours a week. Since they have figured out my schedule, they've been riding their lawnmower over and leaving it on with no one there next to the porch on or past the property line. They have also let their dogs free in the front yard, but complain when mine are out, ride their lawnmower like a four-wheeler up and down the property line, ride their four-wheeler by my bedroom window no matter what time it is, sit by my window way after the sun has gone down and yell at each other or play loud music. Told me to just sell because it's dangerous for a single woman to live alone in the country in a large house by herself, and much worse. They're trying to buy the land on the other side of the home to basically try and force my hand. Today, he was throwing some rusty metal rods on my property right outside of the porch. My office is all windows and attached to the partial wraparound porch, so I could see him clearly. I opened the window and asked nicely for him not to dump on the property line, and he got irate and started yelling at me and made some threats. My cameras have caught that and have caught most of these exchanges and the trespassing. I'm really considering filing a restraining order. I've already spoken with a sheriff who says with my evidence, my request could very well be granted. Would I be the jerk if I filed for a restraining order? Also, due to financial reasons, I cannot put up a privacy fence at this time, as I'm still working on my budget, as I went from a small amount of rent in another state to paying for a whole house. I am saving for it though. Not the jerk. They're trying to bully you into giving them their way. I hate to think what your grandparents went through when they lived there from these terrible people. Not the jerk. You need a restraining order. You also need a bunch of T-posts and some barbed wire to run along the property line. Regarding the trees that were removed, do you have proof it was Chad or his hire? If so, sue them for the replacement of the trees. Carrying a large stack of clothes, but I don't work here. Back in the before times, before lockdown, I went to a department store to pick up some outfits for a friend's wedding. I say outfits, plural, because in my friend's culture, weddings take place over several days, with many different events. I was picking out at least 3 dresses, with matching jackets and shawl options, as I wasn't sure what would look good whilst being considered appropriate and modest. I was too nervous to wear a sari. I've never worn one before, and even though they are beautiful, I'd have no idea how to put it on or take it off. It's not something I would have wanted to bother the bride or her family with during her wedding. I must have been carrying 9 or 10 items around the store, with pretty much my entire body blocked by the huge piles of clothes I was going to try on. I'd come straight from work, so I was wearing a white button-down shirt and plain black trousers, and with a giant pile of clothes, it wouldn't be immediately apparent that I wasn't wearing a lanyard and obviously didn't work there. I was just buying a lot of items. As I was heading towards the fitting rooms, an older lady, maybe in her 70s or 80s, walked up and asked where she could find one of the jackets I was carrying. At this point, I had wandered through so many departments of the store, I couldn't remember what area I had picked it up from. I politely explained that I didn't actually work in the store and was choosing items for a friend's wedding. The lady was so sweet when she realized I didn't work there. She profusely apologized for bothering me. She hadn't bothered me at all, and she got a bit teary and said how much she loved weddings. She offered to say a prayer for my friend and her future husband and to wish them a long and happy life together. She even told me which of the dresses I'd picked up she thought would look best on me. A dress in a jewel tone that was a bit brighter than what I would usually wear, but when I did try it on, she was totally right. It looked lovely. Sometimes I think about that sweet lady and hope that she gets to attend many more weddings and joyous events in her future. So no shouting, no Karens, no drama. Just a lovely older lady and me carrying a comically large pile of clothes. Sister-in-law demands I pay rent in my own house. Context. I, 18 male, am the younger brother to Will, who's 30. My mother passed of a heart issue when I was 5, and my father wasn't the best person. When I was 9, my brother went through a lot of court and custody trials to get a hold of me, and won in the end, partially due to the fact I was open about not wanting to live with my dad. When Will was 24, he got married to my current sister-in-law, Kara, who's 31. Kara doesn't really like me, not in an aggressive way, but she's always treated me more like I was a guest or a visitor who had overstayed their welcome, even trying to move me to the couch after they had their newborn son because why should we get a new house when this one already has 2 rooms? Will was very adamant about the fact that we moved to have more room, so we did. He's always treated me similarly to how he treats his son, with a bit more jokes and non-serious insults in the mix. He's the only family I really have, and he's good family too. My nephew, of course, is considered family as well, and I do love him, but not in quite the same way I care about Will. When I turned 16, I got a job because I didn't want to be leeching off of the 2 of them. I work as a merchandise assistant, nothing amazing, but it makes money. Kara has always had something to say about what I buy, about how I should have been saving or that what I was buying was unimportant stuff. I do have a savings account, and I put some of every paycheck in there. Now that I've turned 18, Kara is trying to make me pay rent, and it's causing constant arguments between her and Will. Yesterday, I got sick of it and told her that I live here. I've lived here longer than you have, so why should I pay rent? Not to add on to the fact that what I do with my money isn't your business. It did stop the argument in all fairness, but Will also told me later I should have kept out of it, and now Kara keeps sending me dirty looks and sly comments every time she sees me, to the point I've started going out to eat or I eat in a different room so that the tension doesn't boil over. I don't know, maybe I am the jerk and should have just compromised with her to keep the peace, but it doesn't feel fair, so am I the jerk? Edit. I only finished high school about a month ago, considering different universities right now. I turned 18 in February. He wanted you to stay out of it because he's still trying to protect you. You have a wonderful big brother, and I'm sorry for the trails you've been through. Not the jerk. Your sister-in-law needs to learn to treat you with respect. You give them privacy, don't be in their business, and you're respectful. I'm sure you do chores as well. OP, you're doing a great job as a younger brother. You did nothing wrong. Maybe talk to her and see what she dislikes about you. She dislikes that he ruined her perfect family dream and that every dollar hubby spends on him is $1 less for her and his real son. She sees him as an unwelcome intruder on her life, but instead of breaking it off with a boyfriend doing something she didn't like, she stuck around hoping she could make him see how unwelcome he is so he would leave. Will's a great brother for stepping up and being a dad at 21, but foolishly naive for marrying someone he needs to protect his brother from. Not the jerk, you are part of Will's family, and she has neither the right nor the power to change that. You didn't get it in writing. No, you. So I was a new but qualified recruit in a small team that was working with a very large client and stakeholder in the company. Despite my skills, it was my first real job fresh out of grad school, so I was inexperienced with office politics, contract law, power hierarchies, etc. The clients had given us an almost impossible task to prototype a complex solution to a technical problem that they had. As the only one in the team with the relative expertise, the burden quickly fell on me to deliver alone while the others essentially managed. The team leader and effective boss promised me at the beginning that I would get a bonus worth roughly 30% of the salary on which I was hired. Apparently, this bonus was a direct financial contribution from the big clients themselves, and the wheels were in motion to get this extra cash. Great, but not really, because it was not in writing. Over the next 2 years, however, no such bonus compensation transpired. I would periodically and half-heartedly ask about this bonus during in-person meetings, and I was verbally reassured it was on its way. In hindsight, I would have been more assertive and perhaps sent an email, but again, I was a newbie and unwilling to bite the hand that feeds, so to speak. After these 2 years, the company began to expand their business with the client as a direct result of the work that I did on the impossible project. At some point, the clients even present all that hard work of mine at some international conference, of course, claiming it was their intellectual property and proprietary solution. Although the project ownership rightfully and lawfully belonged to them, the lack of acknowledgement left a bitter taste in my mouth, and worse was that money flowing around and both companies were profiting from 2 years of painstaking effort, but there was no bonus in sight. So my work contract was also nearing its end in the 3rd year. Obviously, the company wanted to retain me to continue on this project. I was the only one who knew the ins and outs of it. It would be a joint employment between the company and client, as I would be tasked with transitioning the project from the company to the client, which would require several more years to do so. I also went through half a year of specialist training with the clients. Only I could do the job for the foreseeable future. For this, I was offered a decent increase in my salary, but that missing bonus was ruining my trust. At a contract negotiation meeting, I asked about it one last time. The team leader and boss said that they had no recollection of such an agreement or an offer, and that I should have gotten it in writing. Fair enough, some lessons are learned the hard way. But the worst realization was that the missing bonus, a measly 30% of the new hire salary for almost 3 years, was now earmarked for an intern to join me on the project. It was almost a 1-to-1 calculation, as the client would sponsor the intern with the funds that were intended bonus for me. It was the last week of the work contract, and Human Resources had invited me to double-check the document before I was to sign it. Of course, given all the time, money, training, and resources invested in me continuing on this project, and my very real eagerness to do it, it was assumed that I would be here for the long haul, and the work contract was a formality. So what happened next is something that I do not recommend that anyone try at home, or work for that matter. It was a moment of impulse from a reckless youth. However, I was feeling particularly vengeful about the missing bonus. My ego had been bruised because I wrongfully trusted them to follow through, but I was not clever enough to get the agreement in writing. Well, Uno reverse card moment. There was also no written agreement on my end. So I had not yet signed contract. I carefully double-checked my emails, and there was nothing in writing where I agreed to continue on this project, or even this job. In fact, I had just been verbally enthusiastic about the project during meetings with my boss and the clients. The first new workday rolls around when I am officially no longer employed at the company or with the clients. I gave no notice and no warnings. I just abandoned them. On the previous day, I had left my company pager and phone in the office locker. I had to sacrifice a few personal possessions on the office desk. I logged out of the work email messenger system so that they could not reach me. I'm not sure how they responded because I ignored and deflected every single communication which came my way for following months. It was bliss knowing that I probably caused this company a major catastrophe for the next few years at least. Of course, I could not predict the consequences that they would face from abrupt and unannounced exit, but I did not have time to care about them. I had to become selfish, and I had to dip into my savings and relocate and start afresh in another city far away, which was very difficult without references considering the professional bridge that I had just burned, hence the not recommending part. But eventually my skills began to speak for themselves. The last I heard about the company was from an ex-colleague as we reconnected on an online professional network a few years ago. Apparently, the company still exists, but it is a shell of its former self as things went horribly south after I left. They lost the big client as I had anticipated. No one else had the skill set to do work. The clients are still players in the sector, but I have the great fortune of not having to interact with them so far. But I could not have predicted the domino effect that followed in the company. A few more large clients followed soon after because staff had to be reshuffled to do my project, and these other clients felt neglected. Now they are downsizing and in the process of being swallowed by a competitor. From what I gather, the other big casualty of this revenge is my ex-boss developed some substance problem around this time to cope with the stress, triggered in part by not being able to contact me for months on end during a critical time in the company's expansion. Throw in a divorce too, because this work stress destroyed the marriage as well. I did feel a little bit guilty when my ex-colleague explained all this, and still do. Is it enough for me to right my wrongs and write an apology or something? Not really, but perhaps I'm wrong here. I am open to suggestions. Note, the ex-boss tried to get in touch with me a few more times some years after things went downhill, but I was just too busy, so I continued my ghosting strategy. But anyway, here's to my ex-company. I hope it was worth the measly bonus that I deserved. I was brought on as a new recruit, and I was a junior who had to lead the project from the get-go. I had to work hard and learn new skills in the hours outside of work so the fat clients and middle management could reap the rewards, not on my vengeful watch. The reason that I'm writing this is that it is somewhat cathartic. The company did some crappy things, and so did I. But the missing bonus still gets to me from time to time. I could have bought a house, and I could have settled down in that old town. I wouldn't have been displaced for months and living with my head just above the water, having to rebuild myself for a few good years following that. Abandoning the project and the job was career-ending at the time, but my revenge was such that whatever happened, I would try to get through life without groveling back to that company. Of course, this arrogant jerkness of mine, born from this hatred of having not gotten that bonus, still has at least one unwritten chapter. At the current workplace, where I am also a stakeholder now, I'm now proposing a new version of that old project I began a decade ago and never got a chance to see to completion. It would be nice to showcase a patent during an international conference attended by those big former clients. That would be the real bonus. So yeah, mistakes all around, with at best mixed ending for all parties. But at least it is finally good to get this in writing. My selfish sister is having our parents pay for her college. Now they can't pay for my kids' daycare anymore. I'm 25, female. I live with my husband and our 2 sons, who are 3 and 6 months old. We've been struggling financially and both work in the service industry where it's very difficult to get time off, so my parents pay for my son's daycare so we can work. My sister, Jess, who's 17, got into a prestigious Ivy League this year. She received financial aid, so won't have to pay the whole insane amount of money, but housing and reduced tuition comes out to about $10,000 a year. She also got into our local state school where she got a full ride and wouldn't have to pay anything. She decided on the IV when our parents agreed to pay. My parents recently sat me down and told me that they would no longer be able to pay for my kids' daycare because they're paying for Jess's college. Their excuse is that they paid similar amounts to my college. I am extremely frustrated because I went to the cheapest college available for me, and I think Jess should have done the same. We're all proud of her, but I feel like she's putting her ego over my nephews. We simply cannot afford daycare, and I will likely have to quit my job, which may mean we could be evicted. I told all of this to Jess on the phone and politely asked her to contact the state school to ask if they would still take her, and to take a gap year if not. She refused, and I got angry and called her selfish and immature. My husband agrees with me, but our parents are mad and won't answer my calls. Am I the jerk? Update. Okay, I haven't used Reddit much before and wasn't expecting this influx. I called my sister and I apologized and explained that I was angry at this situation, not her. Our financial situation is very bad right now, and I took my fear out on her, which wasn't okay. She said she would speak to our parents for me and consider taking out loans so we could continue getting help. May delete this later. Info. Is it true that they paid $10,000 for your college as well? Because if so, it's not fair to your sister to deny her the money for her dream school. Just because you chose the cheapest school doesn't mean she should have to. Edit. OP isn't replying, but based on other comments, it's gonna be a you're the jerk from me. The parents feel the sister is entitled to the same $10,000 OP was. It's their money, and they can spend it as they please. Wow, you're the jerk. You're an adult with a husband. Start paying your own bills. You're the jerk. It's more selfish and immature to expect your parents to pay for your kids. Your parents are paying for their daughter. They don't need to put her future on the back burner because you and your husband can't be responsible adults. You're the jerk. She doesn't have to choose her college based on your financial issues. You've been lucky your parents have funded your childcare this long. That's not their job, it's yours. She's not being selfish or immature. You, however, have a distinctive smell of entitled. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her younger sister? Please let us know. Bruh. As you wish. In a former life in the previous century, I was a tour bus driver. It was a great job for a single person. Took me all over the US and into Canada several times. The tour companies often hire step-on guides to show a busload of strangers around a city or a national park or such like. The step-on is usually a local resident and knowledgeable about the area's history and attractions. Most are at least competent, and some are remarkably good at their job. One day in a northern city, I forget just where, we picked up a woman who didn't have much experience with bus tours. She had an odd personality and was a bit of a cold fish, but whatever. I didn't have to like her. I just had to work with her for an hour and a half. It soon became obvious she didn't know what she was doing. I had never been to that city before, had no idea what was on her agenda, even if I had known my way around, and she provided very little information to me. Obviously, doing an efficient job of directing the driver is a key part of the job, but she told me she would let me know where to turn. As one might imagine, having a clue or two about where you are headed is very important for the safe operation of a bus. You don't just turn at a moment's notice, especially if you are on a multi-lane road. I had to interrupt her a few times to get directions, and she was getting testy about it. I had been doing the job for a while by then, and I was quite good at it. I got along great with most step-ons, and we worked seamlessly together. The really good ones will incorporate some of their directions to the driver into their narrative. Okay, when we get to the top of the hill up ahead, Gadwell is going to turn left on 19th Street. As we round the corner, if you look to your left, nice. Anyway, this guide got really upset at me the next time I asked her something, like which lane I needed to be in. She keyed the PA mic and said, "I'm sorry for the interruption, but your driver keeps asking me for directions. I keep telling him I'll let him know where he needs to take us." And on to more blather. Okay, I thought, we'll do it your way. Soon enough, the guide gets into telling some story and we continue to motor on, obviously heading out of town on a major street that became a state highway or something. After a while, she noticed where we were and got really flustered. She didn't know a good way to get turned around, and I offered no suggestions, just kept driving while she sorted it out. After that, she started doing her job, and we didn't have any more trouble. After we had dropped her off, the passengers and the regular tour guide told me how funny they thought this episode was, and we all had a good laugh. You want to escalate to Tier 3 support? Okay, there's a process for that. Let's do it. I worked in customer support for a tech firm, and if I may say so, the company is good at it and I am good at it. We have customer satisfaction stories and data to prove it. Our customer support is what gives us a competitive advantage in our marketplace and makes us very profitable. One day I get a phone call from a customer. I say, "Hello, and his response is, "I want to talk to third-tier support." Okay, we have a process for that. What seems to be the problem? No, you don't understand. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to third-tier support. Actually, I do understand. You want to talk to third-tier support. I'm setting that up. But there are a few questions I have to ask you, and if I don't know the answers to those questions, then they aren't going to call you. They are going to ask me to call you back and get those answers. So what seems to be the problem? He explains to me the problem. Have you tried this? No, you don't understand. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to third-tier support. You know, the guys who aren't working from a script. I assure you, sir, I'm not working from a script. Have you tried this? Yes, I did. Now may I talk to third-tier support? Have you tried that? Yes, I did. Now may I talk to third-tier support? My problem isn't on your script. There is no script for this problem. I'm asking you this question because I thoroughly understand our device, and I know from previous experience that might solve your problem. Have you tried this other thing? What makes you think that this other thing is going to solve the problem? Well, I've been doing this work for a couple of years now, and I have a pretty good idea of how these things work. So I thought this other thing might solve the problem. Look, I have a master's degree in computer science. I want to talk to somebody in third-tier support. Now, I don't want to disrespect computer scientists because computer science is a hard field to get into. But everybody should understand that there's a big difference between being a computer scientist, computer programmers, system administrators, database administrators, network administrators, etc. Those are important topics. Computer programmers, by way of contrast, write computer programs. They need to know about computer science topics. But computer science is a means, not an end. The same is true for all of the other specialties that I mentioned. He may be a really good computer scientist, but that doesn't mean he's a network administrator or a system administrator. Those are different specialties. Someone who says, I have a master's degree in computer science, I don't need to talk to you, knows a great deal about what he knows, but doesn't know what he doesn't know. I've been around long enough to know that there is a great deal I don't know. Just try this one other thing, and if that doesn't work, then I will give you to third-tier support. Promise? Promise. I can hear him typing in the background, losing it. I can hear when he hits the return key because he hits it hard. Then he picks the phone up and says, It's working now. Great. You still want me to escalate to third-tier support? Then I get a torrential outpouring of him losing it. Since this is a family channel, I won't give the details, but rather leave it up to your imagination, gentle reader. Then he hung up on me. Wouldn't you know it, he got a customer satisfaction survey, and I got straight zeros. I got called into my boss's office, and we had a conversation about this call. He was upset, and I can't say I blame him, because he also gets graded on our survey scores. He called in some third-tier support people to listen to the recording for training and quality assurance purposes, and they said I did everything right. He, me, did not deserve that rating. They also said that there was no way I deserved that mistreatment and that the survey should be tossed out. Unfortunately, the rules are the rules, and that score counted. So I lost my quarterly bonus, a couple of $1,000s. However, the big boss felt awful about the whole affair, so he and his wife took my wife and I out to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town. We had a lovely time. At the end of the evening, I noticed that he paid for the meal with his personal, not his corporate credit card. I asked him about that. His response was golden. I'm in a position where I could probably get away with it, but that wouldn't be right. What happened to you wasn't right either. This dinner is my way of making it up to you as best I can, and I figured if I'm going to do that, I might as well take my wife and your wife along. Why not? He knew I was married because I have the ring. I love that guy. Worked with him for years. I would have liked a couple of $1,000s, but the acknowledgement that I had been done over was a great second place. Don't send you any small contracts? Got it. This was several years ago when I was working as an installs coordinator for a department store. If you wanted work done, anything from installing a toilet to building a garage, you'd come to me. I'd give you a quick estimate, and if you were on board after that, send a contractor out to your site to do exact measurements, if needed. Then I would work out your exact material and labor costs from there, quote you out, and keep in loop with the contractor, mostly so I could help work out anything that might delay the work. Contractors are paid a set rate, usually per unit, foot, or square foot. They also get a flat $50 fee for the initial site visit, whether or not the customer goes through with the project. I occasionally got calls from frustrated tradesmen who felt these $50 visits were a waste of their time. But since those visits typically took under an hour, including travel, and I was making $3 over minimum wage, I couldn't drum up a whole lot of sympathy for these complaints. Most of our contractors came in two categories: Bigger companies that generally had a liaison who wanted to keep their business partners happy, and individual tradesmen or father and son businesses where the person I spoke to on the phone would be the one doing the work. I was fortunate enough to be trained by my predecessor who remained at the store but had stepped down to take a less stressful position so I could go to him for advice, and more importantly, he helped me quickly build a rapport with the people I worked with. This would become important because I had wide discretion in how I divided up the jobs, but many of our partners were fairly specialized or simply preferred certain kinds of work, a fact that our systems weren't set up to accommodate. Officially, I was meant to rotate through lists. I used this plumber last time, so use that one this time, etc. There was no metric in place to track that I was doing that, however, nor any interest in enforcing it. As a result, I could send more work to people I knew were in a bad financial spot, skip somebody who I knew was planning a vacation or had a sick worker, etc. Maybe a couple months into the job, I get a phone call from a bigger construction company on my list, turning down a site measure I had sent him to fence a yard. I pulled his file up on screen for the call and realized that he had kicked back the last 3 jobs I'd sent to him. He demanded I stop sending him these chicken little jobs. I'm not interested in anything under $100 grand. His file listed him for fences, decks, garages, etc., but there was nothing in his contract about a minimum job size, and I'd have been surprised if there was. So I just told him sure and ended the phone call, then put a note on his file not to use the company. The price of lumber doubled that summer, and the combination of 4 refused site measures in a row, along with not doing any work for us in over a certain number of months, automatically ended his preferred contractor status with us, meaning he was paying more for materials. He paid close enough attention to his business to stop work he didn't like from coming in, but never noticed that his material costs went through the roof overnight. I know the company had a rough couple of years after that. As far as I know, they're still in business, but I hope that dude has mellowed out a little in how he talks to the people who help put work across his desk. We were never a big slice of his income, but I like to hope my small, malicious compliance helped put just a little more of a squeeze on him. Am I the jerk for telling our mutual friends the real reason I adopted a cat? I, 28 male, recently agreed to foster a cat who I was told had massive behavior issues and was going to be taken to an animal shelter if I didn't agree. I expected spitting and hissing and biting, not litter box trained, etc. Cat arrived with nothing to her name. Cat is 5 years old. No box, bowls, toys, food, nothing but a flea collar that was clearly months old and too tight. Cat was absolutely filthy. Ex-owner told me that they couldn't provide money at the time for me to set the cat up, and I allowed it as I had been told that they were in a nasty financial position. We agreed to keep a tab of vet bills and food bills to be paid. As they're leaving, she mentions the case of expensive energy drinks she stopped to pick up on the way. I was gobsmacked. I set about getting what the cat needed and began to try to gauge its behavior. Turns out this animal is the sweetest, smartest, kindest being I've ever had the pleasure to know. Took Cat to the vet, and Cat is extremely ill and underweight. Got her medical shampoo for her skin, antibiotics for the infection that she has, and then called her ex-owner and told her to send me her microchip details as I would be keeping the cat. She says that's fine. Cat was never chipped anyway. Doesn't pay anything bar $40 of the bills. 2 days later, turns up at her job with hair and nails done. I sat on it for 6 weeks and stewed until I found out she had been speaking to someone about a kitten. I didn't embellish anything. I simply told 2 of my closest friends what happened and why the cat stayed with me. The truth spread like wildfire, and most people have now turned their back on her. My only intent was to stop her from getting another animal, not for it to end up like this. I feel like I could be the jerk because this has affected her work and friendships. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This sounds like a person who should not be trusted with anything other than perhaps a cactus. Not your fault that people spread gossip. Am I the jerk for ruining a happy family moment by correcting a lie? So here's the deal. I'm 16, male, got step-siblings, 18, 17, and 15. My dad married their mom when I was 8. About a month before they got married, which is when they became engaged, they sat the 4 of us down and asked for us to give our blessing on the marriage. My step-siblings all did and were eager for it to happen. I was not. All 4 of us had lost our other parent before that point. Their dad passed about 3 to 4 years before that point, and my mom had passed 2 years before. At this time, Dad asked me why, and I said it was all too fast for me, and I wasn't ready for a new family to come in and take over what used to be us and Mom. They told me my reason wasn't good enough, and they were ready, and I would thank them one day. They have forever talked about how special our family is because we chose to be a family. We got to pick our family, etc. I've told my dad and his wife both how much it bothers me when they say it like that because I hadn't chosen this. They told me I would come to understand with time. It's been 8 years. I don't feel different than I did 8 years ago. I didn't choose them, and honestly, I likely wouldn't choose them if I had a choice. They all like to ignore the fact I said what I did and instead say all 4 of us kids agreed and were excited for the wedding. Even my step-siblings will say I chose them and they chose me. Only half of that is true. My dad and his wife celebrated 8 years married with some family. Everyone else was having a good time, but I was annoyed hearing all about how we were family by choice and how we chose each other. So I spoke up. I said everyone else chose, but that I had said no when asked, and I was told my reasons weren't good enough, so they'd choose for me. I said I understand I didn't get to dictate my dad's life, and that's fine, but the least they could do is not lie and say I chose this marriage and family. The mood soured. My grandparents could not believe Dad had dismissed me way back then, and then talked about how happy I was about it. My dad, his wife, and my step-sibling said I spoiled a happy family moment with my outburst, and that makes me childish and mean. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. For an emotionally difficult problem, you have a pretty accurate view of it. I think if they'd shut up about the choice thing, you'd have let them have their happy marriage. But going on and on about it suggests they're overcompensating, and it's not fair to drag you into it and lie about your feelings. That's hurtful and selfish. They're constructing a narrative that makes them look better without regard for how it makes you feel. Telling the truth was the right thing to do. It made them uncomfortable, but they deserved it. Maybe now they'll think twice about dragging you into the happy chosen family story. Am I the jerk for refusing to take my husband's last name? Me, female 26, and my fiance, Jake, male 27, have been together for 5 years. We met in college while he was doing an exchange in my country, Belgium. He's from the US. He loved it here, so he decided to stay, and we are really happy here. I've met his family a few times when we went there to visit them. They've never been to Belgium. Important for later. Now here, women don't take their husband's last name. It is the law. All documents will still be in my maiden name after our wedding. I think it is possible to do all kinds of administrative stuff to change my name, but I don't want to. All the women around me have their maiden name, and my fiance agrees that I should keep my name. On to the main issue. 3 days ago, we were doing a Zoom call with his family, and the topic of the name came up, and they were very surprised to hear that I was not taking his name. I explained very calmly that it is the law here, and that I had the perfect example of my mom, who had a business in her maiden name and only used my father's name when dealing with our school, or things like that, and that I wanted to take the same approach as her. Well, all heck broke loose. His mom started screaming at me, saying that it's not because I came from a country of peasants that I should punish my fiancé, that he was so far away from them because of me, and so on. Jake defended me, and I tried to calm her down, but she turned to her husband while crying that they never came to my country because they know it's not nearly as good as the US, and that I just proved it, and father-in-law said that I was being petty, and that he didn't want to listen to such nonsense. They left the call, and my fiancé comforted me, because I was honestly very shocked by their reaction and their insults. I thought it was over, but they've been sending messages over the past few days. They even got the rest of the family to do it as well, and even my parents said that I should try to keep the peace and offer to check into the administrative procedures to change my name, but I really don't want to. My fiancé is conflicted. He grew up in a town where it was very, very uncommon for a woman not to take her husband's name, and he agrees that it would keep the peace with his family, but he does not want to force me and says that it's my decision. Am I the jerk here? Neighbors parked in my driveway, so I got them towed. So my neighbors had to get together last night. There were a bunch of people and a bunch of cars. I don't know how this even crossed their minds, but 2 of the cars were parked in my driveway. One in the driveway itself, the other half on the curb, half on the driveway. I found out because when my girlfriend pulled up to the house, she couldn't park in the driveway, so she parked further down on the curb. I immediately called a tow truck and got both cars towed. After midnight, we're both in bed and the doorbell rings. Neighbor is at the door. Without greeting, demands to know where the cars are. I told them they got towed. Dude loses his crap. 3 people that were standing further back, who I assume the cars belong to, are also mad. One of the dudes comes over, starts getting in my face. I told him, I'll happily call the cops if he doesn't get off my property. They are seething, but they leave. The next morning, my phone is blowing up. Neighbors asking what happened, some telling me to check Facebook and Nextdoor. I think he spent the whole night posting because there's a whole dissertation about what a jerk I am. Poor neighbor wanted to get together with his closest friends, and what's the big deal if they parked in my driveway without asking me? Anyway, neighbors seem in agreement. Forget this dude. He hosts get-togethers a lot, and frequently our street is filled with cars around his house, so it makes driving dangerous. Strictly speaking, I didn't need to tow the cars. My girlfriend parked on the curb. I wasn't going to drive that night, could have just let it slide. If they asked me, I would have let them park there. But the audacity of people to park in the middle of my driveway demanded action in my eyes. Am I the jerk? Edit. For people asking, I didn't talk to them first. It kind of goes without saying, don't block people's driveways and definitely don't park in one. I'm not a new neighbor. I've been here for almost 2 years. I'm cordial with all my neighbors, friendly with some. This particular one is straight out of central casting for that one jerk neighbor. Brags about his cars and boats, talks crap when his team wins, gets angry at everyone when they lose, can't handle losing in poker, but will tell you about if he wins. Not the jerk. This sets the precedent going forward that parking in your driveway is unacceptable behavior and won't be tolerated. Play stupid games and win stupid prizes. Well, what would you have done? Would you have gotten their cars towed or not? Please let us know. Sure, I would have, but first I would have keyed it. If you don't like it, leave. Don't mind if I do. I want to preface this by saying that this is my dad's story. I wanted to share it to honor him since it's Father's Day and I just got off the phone with him. He's so much happier now. My dad has been a mechanic for almost 30 years. We immigrated to the US 10 years ago, but in my home country, he was both a mechanic and a workshop manager since he studied engineering in college. When we moved to the US, he chose to move all of us, which meant he had to work very long hours, 10 to 13 hours, 6 to 7 days a week, as a mechanic to make ends meet. He could have maybe gone back to school and gotten a better job, but he wanted all of us to be together. Anyway, my dad had been at this job, I won't name which one, but for a big shot car company as a mechanic for years. He had another job before this, but had to relocate after we moved into an actual house. Yay! He was really their star employee. He overworked himself to the point of fainting at work, and all he did was ask his coworker to bring him water and continued working. He never took lunch breaks. He would eat food quickly in 10 minutes and would go back to finishing tickets. None of this is healthy, and I'm not glorifying it at all. I wish he didn't have to do all of this to make ends meet. After almost 7 years at the company and never having gotten a raise, my dad never asked. He didn't even know he was allowed to. Him working himself past his breaking point and doing the work of 3 people as one person, he was told he would get $18 an hour. He was making $15 an hour. This would have been huge for our family, and we would have gotten to refinance the house and lower our mortgage. He worked overtime a lot, so he was excited to make more. Then a mistake happened. Not even my dad's fault. Another worker forgot to put oil in the engine before letting the customer drive off. Obviously, the car broke down and it fell back on the company to reimburse the customer. They decided that they would take it out of the workers' paychecks because everyone should have been paying attention. They told my dad they were canceling his bonus. He finally decided to stand up for himself and said that's not fair. They said if he wishes to instead, he could pay for a portion of the engine's cost himself if he wants to keep the bonus. He declined, which was met with, "Just leave if you don't like it." They assumed that would be an empty threat because not only was this during the height of lockdown, but obviously no man working those grueling hours would be able to afford to just leave. But that's exactly what he did. He simply said, "Okay," and walked out. They tried saying something, but he told me he paid them no mind and drove to the nearest gas station. He then called his old company's manager. This manager was very kind to him. I remember when I was younger, I even went to his kid's birthday party, and that was the first birthday party I had ever gone to. I didn't have any friends in the beginning due to my accent and kids being mean. Apparently, his old manager, who had moved to California himself, then came back to our home state earlier that year, had offered my dad a job when he moved back. This was at another big-name car company, but I won't name which one. My dad had initially told him that he couldn't just leave his workplace since he had been there for years and felt responsible for the company. I honestly don't understand this company loyalty stuff, especially if they pay you like crap, but maybe I'm too young to understand that. Anyway, he explained the situation and asked if the position was still available. My dad got started at his new job at $20 an hour with a raise based on his performance and a sign-on bonus. He didn't even have to interview, just got hired on the spot. After 3 months, he got bumped up to $25 an hour. I always worried about him overworking, but he kept reassuring me that it's a lot less on him even though he still works 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. He tells me a lot of times he's making house calls, so he gets to drive on company time, which relaxes him, and that the workload is a lot less for a lot more. I hope he's telling the truth for his own sake, but he does sound happier. They've even let him borrow the company's cars during winter while the roads are icy because my dad has this beat-up 1999 Toyota Camry that creaks and rumbles while running, and his manager said he doesn't want my dad risking his safety to drive to work. He told me today that they're making him do managerial duties now too. It's what he used to do before we moved to the US, so it's really easy for him, and that as compensation, they're giving him 25% more than what he was getting before. I'm so happy for him and very proud of him. I'm glad he's not overworking himself and left behind that crappy company. They've tried reaching out to him to match what the new job was giving him 4 times, but he's declined every time. They even said they'll give him a sign-on bonus. Obviously, he declined. Mess around and find out, I guess. If you really are going to threaten your most hardworking employee with the "if you don't like it, then leave," then you should be ready to accept the consequences. No, you don't deserve any 2 weeks notice. No, you don't deserve any more of his labor. My dad deserves everything though, and I just want to share his story because I love him so much and I'm so proud of him. Father's Day Malicious Compliance. 18 years ago, to the date, I was over at Dad's house and I needed a wrench, and coming from a long line of mechanics, I knew that he'd have one available as I didn't have my kit in my car, so I asked to borrow one. Dad, of course, said yes, handed me the mechanic's toolbox, and just out of habit, I opened it and immediately noticed that a Craftsman 7/16 ratchet end wrench was missing. Again, I come from a long line of mechanics. Every tool has its place, be it in a drawer, a box, or outlined on a pegboard, and I thought it was weird that Dad lost a wrench out of the spare house toolkit. "You're missing a 7/16, I pointed out, showing him the missing slot. Now Dad, being Dad, just had to mess with me a bit. So looking me dead in the eyes and beaming a huge smile, he responded, "It was there when I gave it to you." Mind you, I hadn't left the kitchen. I hadn't so much as shifted my feet. I knew he was lying. He knew he was lying. But it had been ingrained in me since childhood that losing a tool is horrible. Now I knew he was messing with me and I let it go. But from that day forward, anytime we needed something, he'd make a comment like, "Sure wish I had that 7/16 wrench that Coyote lost," or, "You know what would fix it? That missing 7/16 wrench." This went on for months. So one day he made the usual "tease me for losing a tool" comment, and I warned him. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Say it one more time, old man, and you're going to get that wrench every birthday, Father's Day, and Christmas for the rest of your natural life." A few hours passed. I asked him to hand me a tool, and he said, "I can't. You lost it, remember?" I laughed and played it off, but it was on, and that was 18 years ago. Today, being Father's Day, he just received his 52nd Craftsman ratchet end 7/16 wrench. Since that day, he's tried telling me he knows that I didn't lose it. I knew that already, that I don't need to buy it. Oh, yes I do. And he's occasionally tried to say it was a different size or item to get a different present, but we both know that's not happening. They're everywhere. Every coffee can, junk drawer, cabinet, toolbox, pegboard, or spare nail in the house and garage contains a Craftsman 7/16 ratchet and wrench. You know how they say you're never more than 8 feet from a spider? Well, in Dad's world, you're never more than 7 feet from a Craftsman 7/16 ratchet and wrench, because there are at least 2 in his truck at this point as well. When will it end? When the old man passes on. The last wrench will go in his cold hand so that he can tighten the bolts and heck, because I warned him. Darn it, I warned him. Happy Father's Day to all of you with weird traditions, jokes, and relationships with the man who made you who you are today. And if you need a wrench, hit me up. I know a guy. Am I the jerk for kicking my husband's friends out of the pool? I'm a working, sole income earner for the time being of 2. My husband has been struggling to find a job for 16 months. I don't know what's up with that, and so I've been solely paying for everything. As you know, it's summertime, and the kids want to go to the beach every weekend, but I'm busy working oftentimes, and my husband won't bother to take them unless he uses my car, which is a no for me because I need it for work. Anyway, so I put money towards renovating and upgrading our old pool so the kids could use it. Thing is, once the pool was ready, my husband started inviting his friends to come over and use it for hours. They'd basically taken over, preventing the kids from even using it. They complained about being denied the pool several times, which caused them to get upset. So what I did was talk to my husband about it, and I told him to limit his friends' usage of the pool. He flipped out on me, saying it's his house and his water too, and I can't control what he does or who he brings over. I got mad and in return told him that tomorrow the kids get the pool, or else I will ban his friends from it completely. He side-eyed me and said, "Fine, they can have the darn pool tomorrow." Well, the next day, my daughter calls me crying, saying Dad brought his friends over and refused to let her and her brother use the pool again. I was livid. I literally left work right then and there and came home. I saw him and his friends in the pool messing around. I just screamed my head off at them, telling them to get out. My husband tried to get involved, but I told him off and had all of his friends leave. He blew up at me for acting like a lunatic and said I was being controlling and shameless. I said I already told him to let the kids use the pool, yet he ignored my request. He yelled at me saying, just because I paid to fix the pool doesn't mean I own it. He then went back inside and started calling his friends one by one to apologize on my behalf, since he said I was too shameless to do it myself. He then left the house and hasn't been back yet. Edit. 1. I paid for the pool to get renovated and upgraded. 2. He and his friends are always there using it, giving me and the kids no chance to spend some time in it. 3. He and his friends trash the pool every single time. They drop food and drinks, and I end up having to clean it myself. He left the house and hasn't been back yet? Good. You're not the jerk. Yeah, I'd be looking at divorce lawyers over this. 16 months unemployed, trashing the home with his buddies, being a jerk to the kids, and turning it all into a blowout power struggle with his wife when she objects? What, if anything, does this man bring to a marriage that would make this relationship worth saving? Not the jerk. It would be one thing if he enjoyed the pool with his pals now and again, but your husband has no job, and if he's messing around in the pool this much, then the kids can't even use it. He's definitely a jerk with a sniff of deadbeat about him. He's being an awful dad too by hogging the family pool, which sounds like he barely contributed anything towards, so the kids are literally crying for not being able to use it. What a jerk your spouse is. Tell him to get a darn job ASAP. Am I the jerk for not fixing my mother-in-law dinner? I'm 28, female, and my husband is 32, male. We have 2 kids together, a 3-year-old and a newborn who just turned 2 months old. We recently closed on a home which is outside the city in a rural area. My mother-in-law hasn't ever liked me, simply because we have different beliefs. She feels that my place should be taking care of the home, being barefoot and pregnant and catering to my husband. I'm the oddball. His sisters and sister-in-laws are all stay-at-home mothers. Fine, but that's not for me. My husband was aware that I wasn't a stay-at-home kind of person. We balance our careers and taking care of our house and our kids just fine. My mother-in-law has something to say about everything regarding our household, and though my husband has told her to stay out of our business, she hasn't. His parents live almost 3 hours away depending on traffic. On more than one occasion, she's complained about my cooking. She didn't like this, she didn't like that. It was too this, it was too that. But then would clean plate of the same recipe when I cooked other times and say nothing. She and my father-in-law are here visiting for the next month along with my brother-in-law, his wife, and their 2 kids. My mother-in-law is a Karen. From the moment she stepped into our house, she's pointed out things we should change and what we should add and what we don't need. I've done well ignoring her, up until a couple of days ago. I was in the kitchen cooking dinner while everyone was out back on the deck. She asks my husband when I was returning to work. He told her I already had. She looks perplexed. She shames me to him for putting our kids in daycare, she assumed. She goes on about how if we hadn't moved, she could still be looking after the kids. My father-in-law's health has been at a critical point since last year. Her watching our kids was taken off the table due to us concluding that it would be too much on her to handle. My husband explained this to her. She asked who's looking after our kids. He tells her my mother. She says, "That jerk knows nothing about raising kids. For God's sake, her own daughter doesn't know how to take care of a house properly or fix a decent meal, so your kids are not learning anything there." My husband comes to my and my mother's defense and tells her that he will not tolerate her disrespect in our house and that if she continued with that kind of attitude that she could leave. Dinner is ready. The moment I sat down after delivering everyone their plate, minus mother-in-law, all eyes set upon me. I told her, "Since I can't fix a decent meal, there's no need for you to eat what I cook." There was a moment of awkward silence before my husband slides his plate over to her. It was wrong, but I grabbed it before it even reached her. It caused an argument between my husband and I. Mother-in-law starts crying, and I tell her to get over it because she can dish it out, but she can't take it. Hubby expects me to apologize. No one is talking to me besides sister-in-law, who thinks it was hilarious what I did. Not the jerk. Whoever has a problem with what you said can leave, period. Your mother-in-law does not deserve an apology. You deserve one. All she's done is insult you, and now your mother. Stand your ground. Right? OP isn't running a hotel. She's working and she has kids. Where do these freeloaders get off turning up for a month? And why has her husband allowed his family to do this and then insult her? Not the jerk, but throw them out. They can stay at a hotel or go home. Karen doesn't understand how franchising works. In my late teens, I worked at a popular Canadian coffee and donut shop named for a former NHL player. I'll call it Trevor Linden's. There are many throughout my town, but I worked at one particular one near the waterfront. One day I took my grandfather to the clinic for his weekly checkups. I didn't like waiting around the office, so I went down to the Trevor Linden's by there, got a coffee, and started reading a magazine waiting for his call that he was done and ready to go back home. I was in no way wearing my uniform or anything similar to it, but one Karen knew me from my location and began trying to get my attention as apparently the line was too long and they were a bit backed up. When I looked up, she swept the table with her hand, knocking over my coffee and some papers I had spread out, and said, "Break's over." I said, "Forget you, jerk," though I probably wasn't as polite. I wasn't done with that. She said, "You work for Trevor Linden's. You've helped me before. Get off your lazy butt and help me out," and proceeded to give me her order. The manager and an employee came over and asked what was going on here. The employee began cleaning up my coffee from the floor, while Karen told the manager, "Your employee needs to be helping rather than sitting here, drinking coffee and reading." The manager said, "She doesn't work here. She can't help you with anything." To which Karen said, "BS. She helps me all the time at the waterfront location." The manager said, "That's nice, but this is the downtown location. She doesn't work here." When the employee finished cleaning up, the manager told him to get me another coffee, and Karen blew up even more. "What for? She should be working. She's a Trevor Linden's employee. She should be helping me." The manager said, "Yes, she may work at Trevor Linden's, but not this one. Right now she's just a customer. If you can't be civil, I'll have to ask you to leave." Karen fumed, but returned to her seat, and I thought it was over as the employee brought me another coffee. Side note, I have a pretty complicated coffee order, and I was impressed by the employee getting it right without asking me what it was. Maybe he found my receipt or order slip or something, but he got it correct the first time. I couldn't have done that without help. But it gets better. I was at my location a few days later when Karen came in and got in line. When she got to me, I recognized her, but slapped on my happy customer service face and said, "Welcome to Trevor Linden's. How may I help you?" She said, "Get me your manager." She was definitely in for me. I continued smiling and said, "Sure thing," and went to the back and got him. He asked her what the problem was, and she said, "Your employee here wouldn't take my order and was very disrespectful to me." My manager said, "Sure thing, what may I get for you?" Acting as if she had meant right here, right now. Karen said, "No, not here. At the downtown location a couple of days ago." My manager said, "She doesn't work there. Why did you expect her to help you?" Karen says, "She's an employee of Trevor Linden's. It's her duty to help all customers at every Linden's location." My manager said, "That's another franchise. We may all be Trevor Linden's, but that's a different location. She has no responsibilities there." Now, is there something I can get for you?" Karen snorted, turned on her heel, and marched out the doors. I was more willing to help out and volunteer for that manager after that. Am I the jerk for not sharing my garage with my girlfriend? I, male 28, am in a 2-year relationship with my girlfriend who's 27, and we haven't had any big problems yet. We don't live together, but she spends a lot of time at my place because she has roommates. I have a 1973 Dodge. It's kind of broken down, and I bought it really cheap a few years ago. The car is not that good, but I honestly have a deep love for it, and I spend a lot of money on it wherever I have some money left to spend. Recently, my girlfriend bought a 2017 car. The car is nice. It's new too, so it doesn't even have a scratch. The thing is, my girlfriend demanded that I leave my car outside when she sleeps over so she can leave her car in my garage. She said that since her car is new, then it's more important to keep it safe. I obviously disagreed. My car might be cheaper, but it's still my car, and I think I deserve to keep it safe because it's my only vehicle. She stated that I'm being selfish because she had to work a lot to make enough money to buy the car, so I tried to calm her down and told her that I could pick her up at her house when she wants to stay over. She'll be able to leave the car in her home's garage, to which she said no, and that she had brought the car to be seen in a new car and not in a broken down one. She then called me stupid and told me I was ruining our relationship for a car, and I answered that she was doing the same. She left and hasn't been answering my calls. Was I really wrong for this, or should I stand my ground? Not the jerk. I would be careful. One girlfriend sold a guy's 1970 Impala while he was out of town so that she could park in the garage. Not the jerk. Your situation was really reasonable. Both of your cars will be safe that way. I think your girlfriend doesn't appreciate your stuff because it's cheap. She may not know how hard you had to work for it, or maybe she just doesn't care. Either way, OP, this is a hill to die on. Not the jerk. She's the one ruining your relationship over a car. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. I'd pick the car over her, bruh. Just saying. My first malicious compliance, the bathroom break bandit. I started my first full-time job while home from school on summer break. I always loved reading the stories on this sub and figured I might be in a similar situation at my job at some point, but I didn't realize it would happen so quickly. During my second week on the job, the guy training me came up to me and told me multiple coworkers had complained to him that I was taking my breaks way longer than I was supposed to be. At first, I was confused by what he was talking about. I thought maybe people had gotten me confused with another new employee, but after a couple of minutes, I realized what was going on. So for some context, the job was in a large warehouse, meaning it could take up to 5 minutes to walk to places like the break room or one of the bathrooms. Because of this, I would always try to use the bathroom right before my break, since there was a bathroom right there and I wasn't interrupting my work. I would speed run the bathroom and start my break about 2 minutes late. Most coworkers stayed a few minutes past the end of the break, myself included. These two things meant that even though I took the same length break as most of the other employees, it looked like I was staying about 5 minutes past my break. Don't like that? Okay. Well, around the same time, I learned that they don't care when or how long you take your bathroom break. You can just go whenever. So after I got the complaints, I stopped taking the quick 2-minute bathroom pit stops before my breaks. Instead, I stop in the middle of what I've been working on, walk 5 minutes to the bathroom, take a relaxing 10-minute bathroom break, and walk 5 minutes back. Repeat this 3 times per shift, and I've gone from stealing 6 minutes of company time per shift to up to 60 minutes, hence the bathroom break bandit. This took place last year. They later trained me on forklift, cutting down on how long it took to get to the bathroom. I have a new job now with higher pay, but I do slightly miss that job because it was pretty laid back, and besides this one incident, people were pretty friendly. Manager tells me I need to know which rules to follow. When I was in grad school, about 15 years ago, I was working nights and weekends in a convenience store. It also happened to be the first time the fuel prices shot up to $4 plus per gallon in America. Because of this, there were quite a few people who pumped gas and drove off, prompting our company to institute a pay before pumping policy. The company was a small regional chain of gas stations/convenience stores in a largely rural area. They were concerned about any loss, so much so that in the company newsletter, they announced firing someone for regular theft from the store. The theft in question was when an employee refilled her fountain drink while on duty. Another example was that we were required to do money drops anytime we had more than $200 in the cash register. Another employee was fired because she was robbed and hadn't done a money drop. There was approximately $205 in the register at the time. So when this new policy came out, I wasn't about to risk my job over someone filling up and driving off with a tank full of gas on my watch. My manager was really good about working around my needs for class, research, etc. while working on my degree. So I put up with this and wanted to keep my job. One night I'm working and someone pulls up to get gas. The machine beeps, letting me know someone is trying to fuel up before paying. I won't pre-authorize because policy. Customer comes in and demands I let him fill up before paying. I explain the policy and he lights into me with perhaps every word he knows. I'd like to say I was professional, but I returned his hospitality. The next day when I show up for work, my manager is waiting for me, clearly unhappy. He is a regular customer and we want to keep them happy. I explained to her that regular customer or not, I wasn't willing to risk my job over a drive-off when people are getting fired for losing such little sums of money. Manager states, I see what you're doing, but you have to learn which rules to follow. Now, she's been with the company for about 15 years. She could get some leeway. I'd been there less than a year. I had no leeway. So I asked her, please put in writing which rules I am expected to follow and which rules I am not. Or put in writing which customers are exceptions to policy and which ones are not. Until then, I'm following all of the company's policies. I'm not surprised that she wouldn't put that in writing. Fast forward about a week. I'm working solo on a Sunday afternoon when someone I've never seen before comes in and yells at me for not pre-authorizing his pump. I explained the company policy and that he would have to prepay just like everyone else. Customer claimed he was with corporate and that he should be allowed an exception. I informed him that if he really was from corporate, he'd know about this policy and would expect me to follow it. I even pointed to the policy statement in the window for him to read. The customer yelled at me and stormed off before I could reply. Turns out, this stranger was from corporate and even the VP of the company. He called to complain to my manager about my refusal to let him pump first. She repeated my arguments as to why I refused to risk my job and that he should be glad to know they have such loyal employees. VP said that policy was meant for regular customers and not for employees. She replied, please put into writing which rules we are expected to follow and which ones we are not. You want me to keep digging? You got it. Since lockdown started, I've been living with my sister and my parents at home. I'm pretty grateful that I get along with my parents and my sister, and things have been pretty smooth sailing given the circumstances over the past year or so. That being said, my dad is pretty my way or the highway with most things, always very controlling when it comes to keeping the house clean and the backyard manicured. He bought a lawnmower, trimmer, and blower this past spring and tidies around the house probably twice a week. I love him, but darn, does he need things to be clean, and he will not waste an opportunity to complain about things that are messy and ask us to do mundane tasks, refill the toilet paper when we have many extra rolls, etc. I'm pretty understanding, and my dad's just a little on the neurotic side, but he's just so uppity about it that it's hard not to get annoyed at. So a couple weeks back, my dad noticed the flower bed in the backyard isn't doing so hot. Or rather, it's doing too hot. The trees above give pretty much normal shade most of the garden, but lets the sun absolutely bake the flower bed. Not much you can do about it, just a small quirk of the backyard landscaping. My dad can't look at that without thinking, this needs to be solved. But instead of planting a sun-loving plant, he decides it's the soil's fault. Somehow, he makes the connection that the soil might have been salted by accident or something, and my dad asks me to dig out the dying flowers, clean out the soil, put in new soil, and replant the same dying flowers. I'm a bit confused because it's pretty obvious the sun is the problem. But once my dad decides he's solved a problem, it's solved. So after a bit of an argument, I cut my losses, except that I'm living here rent-free and go clear the soil, repot the flowers, and give them a nice watering. 1 week later, and the flowers are dead. My dad gets in his head that somehow I didn't get rid of the old salty soil, and after some more arguing over how the sun works, I'm off to Home Depot for more flowers and soil to plant new flowers in new soil. The next batch holds for maybe 2 weeks, until the inevitable heat death of the flower bed comes about. and my dad is left with a second batch of crisp flowers. Yet again, it's my fault for not getting rid of that darn salty soil. So he says, "Big Chip, do not stop digging until you get rid of every last inch of old soil." Here's the thing. Some of our flower beds are placed over canvas fabric, which separates it from the ground soil, a geotextile fabric to keep things level, which is what my dad thought I was digging down to. This flower bed was not one of them. There is no bottom. My dad leaves to go for a bike ride, and I start digging. And keep digging. Still digging. Lunch, back to digging. My mom and sister decided to chill outside with me, my mom telling me that this was ridiculous, and my sister cheerleading me for it. My dad gets back home before dinner, and I'm about waist deep in an 8-foot long by 4-foot wide pit with a huge ring of soil around the edges. Dirt all over the backyard. He barges over, smoke coming out of his nostrils, yelling at me about how I'm destroying his garden, asking what the heck I'm doing. I just said, "Well, I don't think I can get rid of all the old soil, but a couple more days of this, and I think we'll be pretty safe." My sister starts laughing, and my dad has absolutely no recollection of his words until my sister has to remind him of what he said. Looking forward to tomorrow, when my dad's gonna have to help me refill the pit and come with me to a local garden center to pick out some sunflowers. My annoying girlfriend records us eating dinner to post on social media. My girlfriend, who's 33, and I, 26 male, have been together for about 2 months. I'll give it a bit of backstory. My girlfriend is an absolute gym shark and has a pretty good fit as she works out really early in the morning every day. She also records these workouts and posts them on her social media. She has a whopping amount of followers for being a relatively normal person, meaning she's not a celebrity. About 130,000 followers to be exact. Most of her videos are usually thirsty guys complimenting her, but I bite my tongue because she's with me. She also records lots of videos with me and takes lots of pictures with me and posts them on her social media too. She loves making dancing videos with me too, which I fail at horribly. Now back to the story. We went to a pretty nice restaurant and she started taking videos and pictures of me and the food. I didn't mind, but it was getting annoying, so I told her to put her phone away. She said no, and when our entrees got to the table, she started recording live. I told her quietly to turn it off as I didn't want to be eating in front of people live. She laughed, thinking I was joking, and I said I was serious. She scoffed and said no. I put her phone with the camera facing down and told her that I didn't like being recorded while eating and told her it was annoying. She said she didn't care and told me it's her social media and she can do whatever she wants. I got frustrated and told her that it's annoying and that nobody cares what she's eating. She argued with me that it wasn't true and showed me how many views she had. I told her it was just a bunch of thirsty guys. She said that wasn't true and ignored me. She decided to just record herself eating, and we finished dinner without talking, and she was pretty upset. I think I took it too far, but she was being annoying. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Sure, it may be just her social media, but the relationship belongs to both of you. If she can't even be present with you and is instead looking at everything as a potential viral video, that isn't fair to either of you or the health of the relationship. I'm not usually one for ultimatums, but this situation may just call for one. You're the jerk. You sound really insecure. Thirsty guys? What, so you think she can't have actual fans just because she's attractive? Plenty of guys would give anything to be with a fitness celebrity, which is pretty much what your girlfriend is at this point. And instead of encouraging her and being supportive, you let your own insecurities get in the way and you're trying to hold her back. I hope she finds a guy who is secure in himself and who supports her. You should really stop being so controlling. You totally give me creeper vibes like my ex did. He didn't even want me going to the movies with a guy friend because he was so insecure. Like, look, dude, I don't care what kind of issues you have from your past, but there's no way I'm letting you take it out on me. So yeah, I'm not proud of it, but in the end, I did cheat on him just to hurt him. That's what happens when you're an insecure little guy wasting the time of a grown woman like me. Take me as I am, or you'll miss me when I'm gone. Well, don't you sound lovely? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. You shouldn't post pictures or videos of your loved ones on social media if they're not comfortable with it. Unless it's on our TikTok. I'm gonna post a really funny video of Reddit boy on there soon. Don't mess with an engineer. I worked for a company that provides specialized equipment used in manufacturing. To protect my anonymity, I'll have to be vague about what exactly this machine does. During my time working in this field, I got to know many clients who would need these machines installed and serviced. One of these customers we'll call Jake. I later left the company for a different job, but Jake apparently kept my number. One afternoon, I got a call from Jake that they wanted a new unit installed and another unit needed maintenance and wanted to know if I was available. I let him know that I left the company, but that I could pass him on to someone who could help. He tells me he'll pay me 2 times my current rate to install the unit over the weekend. He lets me know that the company has increased the rates of installation and the company just can't afford it. The instructions they sent over just aren't clear enough, and their engineers are scratching their heads trying to figure it out. He begs me to consider it, and I agree. For more context, installing this unit can take a good few hours or up to a day on your own. The company gives you 2 options. You can either pay for an engineer to come and install it, or you can save money and they will send instructions so the customer's own engineer can install it. The instructions aren't easy to follow, and it's company policy that if someone has started to install the equipment, the supplier wouldn't get involved since they couldn't verify that any of the pieces were broken. This will be important later. I drive down on the weekend and they show me the boxes of equipment. I set to work and I make good progress installing the unit. Around 6 hours in and I'm stopped by Jake, who greets me. I let him know I'm nearly finished and he tells me, "Sorry, but they just don't have the budget to pay you." He understands my frustration, but his engineers can take it from here. To say I was frustrated was an understatement. I wanted revenge. There's a small button inside the unit that changes the unit into test mode. This is done to perform maintenance on the unit, but it's impossible to configure the unit with the button pressed. It's only possible to reach this button using a pin, so it's not easily pressed during installation. Because of this, the installation instructions don't mention it. There's really no way of telling the equipment is in test mode, it just won't work normally. I think you can guess where this is going. I click the button, collect my things, and leave. Monday morning, I get a call from Jake. I declined. I knew my old company wouldn't get involved since I already started installing the unit. I knew his engineers would never figure it out. I just had to let him stew. A few days later, with many missed calls, I finally pick up. Jake is furious. He asks me where the heck I've been and why I haven't been picking up my phone. He tells me they can't figure it out how to configure the machine and they need my help. I tell him, "Why is this my problem? You won't pay me." He told me he was sorry and they would work something out if I could get there as soon as possible. I told him, "Oh no, you're going to pay me 7,000 pounds up front before I do anything." I'd never felt this powerful before. He screamed at me for a bit and hung up. He called back a day later after saying that he's sorry for how he acted and said that if I could come fix it, he would pay me, in a totally defeated tone. He tried to fight it, saying he'll pay me when I was done, but I was having none of it. After a bit of back and forth, he agrees to pay me. The money hit my account and I came in the next day. The look of confusion over his face when I took out a pin and changed the unit from test mode was priceless. It was even more priceless seeing his reaction to me packing up my tools and leaving after only 20 minutes of configuring. Easiest 7,000 pounds I'd ever made. Don't try to mess with a professional problem solver. I remember a builder decided not to pay his crews on a house he was building. At first, the foreman of each crew put a lien on the house, about 8 guys. Then, each and every worker put a lien on the house, about 70 guys. So when the buyer found out there were nearly 80 liens on the house, he backed out of the purchase. Then the builder had to track down every one of them before he could sell the house. Problem being, a lot of these guys who didn't get paid moved on to other crews, other professions, even other states. It was years before the builder could clear all the liens before he could sell the house. And he had to pay taxes on it the whole time. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that she doesn't need to be with her sick friend? So my wife has a friend from childhood called Anthony. I'm being completely honest here when I say that he and I don't get along. It's not like he's rude or disrespectful, nothing like that. But all I feel towards him is annoyance, sort of speak, because of how much my wife sees him. He lives alone and now suffers from a medical condition that requires him to go to the hospital regularly to receive treatment. I found out that my wife promised him to go with him to every chemo treatment as support. She said it's a commitment she made to be there for him during this rough time since he has no one else besides her. Okay, I had no issue with that at first, but then this started affecting me. Example, I can't go see my friends because I have to stay with my son on this day so that my wife could be with Anthony for his treatment, etc. I've talked to her about it, but she said that Anthony needs company and that she's just being supportive, and this is when he needs her the most. I let it go, but last week was kind of just my last straw. Anthony had another session, and my wife wanted to go with him and asked me to stay home with our son. I told her I had to meet up with my mom and sister to eat lunch and that I won't be home. She said she needed to go be with him, and I kind of flipped out on her and said that she doesn't need to be with him and could literally go see him at home the next day or something. She threw a fit and called me cruel for forcing her to leave Anthony by himself since she's all he has and that I was making her look bad. She also said my appointment with mom and sister wasn't as important as his sessions, but I decided to just leave and end the argument. She ended up staying at home, but kept ignoring me when I got back, calling me selfish for not letting her be there to support Anthony with what he's going through. Some of her girlfriends think I'm being a controlling jerk with no consideration for Anthony and what he's going through. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Your son should be a higher priority than you going to lunch or hanging out with your friends. Also, chemo is serious. Nobody should have to go through it alone. If Anthony has only your wife for support, so be it. Also, why couldn't you just take your son to lunch with your mom and sister? He probably would have liked to get out of the house for a bit, see his family and spend time with you. Jerk move, OP. Looks like I'm early. I'll pop back in a few hours to hopefully see that you've been completely called out for this. You're the jerk. Do you even have a heart? Info. Why is the child care of your son primarily your wife's responsibility? You're the jerk. You just conveniently can only see your friends on days that Anthony has chemo treatments? Why can't you plan around them if they're pretty regular? It's no different than if it was your wife's family member. Also, why can't your kid come with you when you go to see their grandma and aunt? You are the tiniest bit of inconvenienced by all of this. Meanwhile, someone very important to your wife is sick, and you're mad at her for spending time with them? You sound jealous and petty. I find it hilarious how everyone is calling you a jerk for this. But this is Reddit, so what do you expect? If the roles were reversed, they would still be calling you the jerk for putting another woman over your own wife, and they'd definitely be accusing you of cheating. They'd call it a red flag and tell her to leave you. Edit. Downvote me all you want. You know it's true. Need to get off here now. My lunch break is almost over. I'm a senior financial analyst. I've got a beautiful wife at home with the kiddos, and I hope OP finds a good one someday like I did. But in this day and age, good luck with that. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Bruh. Am I the jerk for taking the diamond out of an heirloom ring for my girlfriend's engagement ring? I, 28 male, have a 32-year-old sister and a 37-year-old brother. My grandmother left my mother her diamond engagement ring. My mother always said she would leave the ring to my sister, who's 32, but my sister recently told her that since she has an engagement ring from her husband and she's not really into jewelry anyway, why not leave grandma's ring to one of our brother's kids? My sister is child-free. A couple of months ago, I told mom I was going to propose to my girlfriend, and she offered me grandma's ring to do it with. My girlfriend was amazed at the size of the rock, but didn't like the ring. It was a traditional solitaire setting in white gold, and asked if we could take the diamond out and use it in something more modern. She picked a new platinum setting with a couple of smaller diamonds, and I was glad to save money. When my mother found out, she was surprised, but not upset, and asked if she could have the setting back. The inside was engraved with my grandparents' initials and a message. I didn't have any use for it, so I said sure. This weekend, my fiance and me and my sister and her husband were visiting our parents for Father's Day, and my sister was excited and asked to see Missy's ring. When my fiance held out her hand, my sister had a surprised Pikachu face and said she thought I was proposing with Graham's ring. I told her it was Graham's diamond, and she said, "Oh," and that was it. On Sunday, I noticed my mother was wearing the old setting, but it had a blue stone, a sapphire. I asked her what this was about, and she said my sister took it to a local jeweler and had the new stone put in and gave it to her as an early birthday present, and mom was all happy she could still wear the setting, which she had missed having on her finger. She used to wear it all the time. I confronted my sister later that night and asked her what her problem was. She said nothing at first, but I kept pushing, and finally she said, "Look, if I knew what you were going to do to Graham's ring, I wouldn't have told mom to give it to you." I said she didn't. She said mom should give it to one of the nephews. Sis said that's because she assumed mom would want to keep it during her lifetime. Then she said if all Missy and I wanted was the diamond, that was our prerogative. But the setting was a piece of family history and sentimental, and she didn't want it getting tossed aside. I thought she made me look bad and said so. She told me to get over myself. I called her a jerk. She told me if I'm getting married, I should think about growing up and walked off. And I feel like she spoiled my engagement gift to Missy. She made you look bad? No, you made yourself look bad. She made herself look good. You clearly missed the importance of the piece and just plain old dropped the ball on asking Mom if it was okay to reconstruct the piece. Of course, Mom seemed okay with it after the fact. What else was she going to do? Wrestle the ring off your girlfriend's finger and demand it be put back together? She and your sister handled this with grace. You were at best clueless and then made a Pikachu face when you pushed your sister for doing something nice for your mom and didn't like her answer. You're the jerk, OP. You took what you wanted and then threw a tantrum because your sister did something nice for your mom so that she could keep wearing her mom's ring. Info: why are you so upset they got a new stone in the setting if you didn't want the setting? 'Cause he's tired of her always saving the day and treating him like a little kid, according to his comments on this post. Seems like there was no problem until he made it a problem. Edit: OP, your sister did a nice thing for your mom, and that made you mad. Why exactly? You should have been happy that your sister found a good use for that part of the ring that you didn't need, and that it made your mom happy. It was literally a win-win situation. You got upset over nothing. It was extremely childish. Your sister is right. This kind of behavior is not a good sign in someone making this kind of life-changing commitment that marriage is. You need to grow up and start thinking about other people, not just your own fragile ego. You should apologize to your sister for how you acted too. Tell her that you recognize she was just trying to do the right thing and that you had no right to be upset by it, and promise to try and handle your emotions better in the future and to be more considerate of other people. She'd be so impressed with that level of maturity coming from you, and it would help set a healthier tone for your relationship moving forward. I'm sure she's not perfect, but in this situation, you're the jerk. But you can start to fix that by apologizing. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know. Bro, I'm still trying to figure out why he got mad at his sister. Get corporate involved over something minor? If you insist, enjoy that negative rating. This happened last night, but the results played out this morning. I was parked at our yard in Dallas and didn't feel like walking a mile to get food. 90+ degrees at 8:30 p.m. Why, Mother Nature? So I ordered a pizza to be delivered to our yard so I could snag it from the guard shack and munch away. Placed the order online and paid, and was informed that it would be about 55 minutes for delivery. Okay, cool, no big deal. I can relax and wait for the call that the food has arrived. I even confirmed with the store about the address and made sure that they would call me or had the guard call me when they got there, to which the lady told me it was cool. Fast forward to 10:05. I get a text telling me that the delivery was passed off to DoorDash and they would be there in a few minutes. Okay, not who I anticipated, but all right. 10:15 rolls around and I get another text telling me that they couldn't find the address, so they were taking it back to the store. Not cool. I call the store and ask for the manager. She started off rude and stayed there. Sir, our delivery driver couldn't find your location, so we had to bring it back to the store. You need to provide a better address. Excuse me, ma'am, but when I spoke to a manager around 8:45, I was assured that the driver could find this location and was even assured that the driver would call me should any issues arise. Now, since I'm out on getting food, can I get another driver to deliver it or get a refund? I had explained. We're about to close for the evening. It's not our fault that we can't find where you are located. You should have given the address clearer. As for a refund, I'm afraid we can't do that as we attempted delivery and was unsuccessful. If you want, you can call corporate and take this issue up with them. Good luck. Click. The snarky undertones came through loud and clear. Oh, it is on. I called corporate office, and while on the phone with them, I left a scathing 1-star review on their page. Corporate lady was the complete opposite of snarky jerk at the restaurant. She assured me that it would be dealt with, and she will get to the bottom of things. Fast forward to this morning, about 2 hours before I posted this, I get a call from that same store. It was a manager that came in to see my scathing 1-star review on their page, and an email from corporate demanding the manager from last night lose her job, and that I, the customer that got done over, get a full refund issued immediately. Aftermath, lady did lose her job. I got the full refund plus an additional $40 in coupons and was told that if I order from that location again, they will see to it that my instructions are followed precisely and not passed off to someone else. Never mess with a driver and his food or bad things happen, like you find yourself jobless. No drinks, no tip. So I'm working at a huge event location, and I'm the guy responsible for refilling the bars with drinks every time the bartender makes an order, and also picking up the used glasses and pints to bring them to the washing station we have. In general, I'm the guy that helps the bars running there. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 of us in a shift, but other times not. There can be nights that the 5 bars are open and the place is full with around 3,000 people. Just to give you a taste of what the job looks like when the place is packed on a typical Friday or Saturday night, imagine that you have to carry and deliver around 20 beer kegs, each with a weight of 65 kilograms, 130 pounds, and around 60 cases of beer and soft drinks just when you start your shift. When something goes out at the bar, the bartender makes a new order that I have to deliver, and this goes on all night long, from 17 till 06, and sometimes, if there are any GOA parties, till 11. Also, just to give another taste of how big this place is, during a normal shift, according to my phone, I'm walking 28 kilometers, 17 miles. Where I come from, we call this job runner. The underwritten law there is like this, that each bartender has to give 20% of the tip they make each night to the runner, because without a runner, he would have no drinks to serve. Nobody can really know who's really giving 20% of their tips, but that's another story. But every bartender is giving something, and usually it's a lot, and all sides are happy. Then comes a new guy, and staff manager explains to him the unwritten rule, saying exactly these words: "You don't want to have problems with any of the runners, so be fair." When you're doing this job for a while, you know approximately if the tip you get is going to be good or not. Fast forward. Huge metal festival with all bars open, 3 different stages, outdoor bars, etc., plus after-show parties. The place is packed like there's no tomorrow. This festival is happening every year, and it's one of the best shifts. Even though a lot of work, and it's around 17 hours of work. Yes, it's a lot, but walking home with $1,000 in tips is worth it. So the new guy has a spot at a very good selling bar, was providing and delivering drinks there like crazy. After a long shift, when everything is done and they do their calculations, he brings the money to the treasury, looks at me and says cold-blooded, "Thank you, have a good night. Tonight was a good night to work," and walks away without giving me my tip. That was it, folks. I kept doing my job every time he had a shift at one of the bars like nothing happened, and I was just waiting for a full packed night to come. And finally, after a week, it was time. Again, the place is fully packed. His first order arrives in my tablet. Sadly, I was too busy to deliver. 1 hour passes. He tries to call me on my phone. I pick up, standing next to a subwoofer. 1.5 hours go by, and second order arrives from him. Didn't even deliver the first one. Sadly, I was again too busy. Then after half an hour, the shift manager calls me on the radio. The shift manager was lazy doing this job before getting a better position there. "Hey, what's going on? Why has he no drinks to sell?" "I'm busy with the rest of the bars. The guests can go to the other bars." "Are you serious? That guy can only sell water and everything else is empty." And then I reply, "He can sell water, but no one tips a bartender for water, right?" Small pause on the radio. "You can't be serious. He's leaving no tips for you guys?" "Yep, you guessed it." "I'm sending this idiot home." Positive. Am I the jerk for asking my son to get a paternity test? My son, who's 18, has found out that one of his ex-girlfriends is 8 months pregnant. He knew nothing of the sort of her being pregnant until now, and now he's just expected to accept everything, no questions asked. My daughter, who's 20, is good friends with this girl and knew about her pregnancy but said nothing to us because her friend asked her not to. My son was head over heels for this lady, but she ended up breaking his heart by cheating on him and was very needy and manipulative. He spent a lot of money on her because she would ask for gifts my son couldn't even afford and convince him to use one of my credit cards to buy it. My daughter, who isn't currently living with us and is actually rooming with her by her college, is also being manipulated by her and thinks that she only does good and doesn't believe that she's convinced her brother to use my credit card or that she even cheated. Showed up with my son's ex-girlfriend at my door to help her tell us that she's pregnant. When I saw her there at my door, visually pregnant, I knew she was going to say that my son is the father of her kid and immediately said that my son will not be putting in any money or time until there's a paternity test proving that it's his kid. My son backed me up and agreed. My daughter was horrified by my comment and accused me of encouraging him to be a deadbeat father and was upset I didn't even give them a chance to explain themselves. My son's ex started crying, saying, "You always assume the worst of me," and that she went 8 months of pregnancy alone, and the least we could do is ensure she's taken care of for the betterment of his kid. I do agree that if it is his kid, we're going to ensure mom is doing well to ensure the baby is doing well. But I don't want my son to be involved with her only to get his heart broken again and only to find out that the kid isn't even his. Am I the jerk here? Everyone sucks here. He's old enough to steal your credit card. He's old enough to handle his ex and possible kid on his own. Everyone sucks here. I'm gonna go against the grain and say everyone kind of sucks. When you said ask your son, I was under the impression that you would be asking him to consider getting a paternity test. Not that you were intervening between the mother on his behalf. That's too much. Maybe if he was a minor, but you overstepped. He needs to handle this himself with your support. You should not be leading these kinds of conversations. Info. Do you have proof or admittance of the cheating and manipulation you referenced above? I will agree that it's kind of sketch that she waited till 8 months to say anything, but you also kind of sound like the kind of mom who no matter what, whoever your son is dating is not good enough. If that is the case and the ex-girlfriend knew it, that could have fueled her to not tell. You're the jerk. What is wrong with you? Do you even have a heart? To even imply that she could be lying about who the father is shows what kind of a monster you really are. Honestly, even if he isn't the dad, you should not be intervening whatsoever. Somebody needs to take some accountability for that baby, and if another guy won't take responsibility, then your son should. You trying to stop that makes me literally sick. Do better. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to read the comments we get about this one. Am I the jerk for telling my dad and his wife that her kids are not my brother and sister? My parents divorced when I, 16 male, was 4. My dad married Becca when I was 7 and stepped up to be dad to her kids, who at the time were like 3 and 5. My dad tried to ban the word step from our house. For a good 3 years, he told me I shouldn't call Becca my stepmom or her kids my step-siblings. He said I could call her some other mom variants, but her kids were my brother and sister, period. Becca also chimed in on this crap, and she told me countless times that I was her kid's brother, and therefore my mom should be expected to be more involved with them. My mom, who I lived with half the time, but now I live primarily with her, was expected to buy them gifts and invite them over to our house and treat them like part of her family. She was expected to call them my brother and sister, and I guess act like they were her stepkids versus her ex-husband's stepkids. To me, they've always been step-siblings. Becca is my dad's wife or stepmom, though stepmom to me is more of a close title since my friends who use that are close to their step-parents. I'm not close to Becca or my dad. I ended up choosing to stay more with my mom because I couldn't handle Dad and Becca constantly bringing their kids' inclusion at my mom's up to and around me. They would either talk to me about it or would corner my mom at exchanges in front of me. My mom would always try to minimize contact, but my dad and Becca made it a point to be present at the moment I would get to my mom's house or car. My mom is significantly better off financially compared to my dad and Becca. I always assumed it's why they pushed the idea of my mom buying them gifts and including them in her life has been such a big push. They know I have stuff Becca's kids never get, and they know I get cool experiences. The last time my dad and Becca brought it up, I got mad. I had already told them to stop countless times in the past. I told them to leave my mom alone and leave me out of it. I told them Becca's kids were not my brother and sister. They're my step-siblings, and I was going to keep using step regardless of how much they like it. I also said they're not my mom's kids, therefore not included by her when she has me. I said they needed to get over that fact, that they can't demand my mom buy gifts like she has 3 kids or open her home like she has 3, that she has just me, and by demanding crap, they're making it really toxic. I think the point that got them the most mad was saying that they are not my brother and sister. They've always been big on step being exclusionary. To me, it's just true though. No hard feelings towards Becca's kids, but step-siblings is how I see them. Am I the jerk? Am I the jerk for saying that the reason why I don't want to visit my mom is because it hurts to see her happy with her new family? My mom, 37 female, and I were deeply close. She used to say that I was her pride and joy. I'll turn 17, I'm male, tomorrow, and I've decided that I no longer want to go to her house to visit her and her real family. Some context. My mom had an affair when I was 9. She left my dad because she fell in love with a married man, and the man ended up divorcing his wife and moving in with my mom. My dad has custody of me, and my mom was granted to have me on weekends. She seemed happy to have me and always treated me well. Her husband treated me well too, though sometimes he tried to make me respect him as a dad. As my mom's husband's ex-wife wanted nothing to do with the 3 kids they had, who are 18, 17, and 12, my mom started spending more time. Because her husband had full custody, she sometimes acted like a mother to them more than to me. She would pick them up from school. Never did that for me. She celebrated their birthdays while she was just a guest at mine. It was hard because it felt like I was gradually losing my mom. During her custodial, she was great, but she never tried beyond the minimum when it wasn't her time. I had a swimming competition in 2019. It was at school, but she didn't show up because it was on Wednesday and her stepdaughter had an activity at school. She tried to compensate for it later, but the scar was left there. It isn't healthy for me to be at her house. I suffer a lot when I'm there because they get to have my mom 100% and I only have weekends. They also have a 5-year-old son. It sucks seeing them play the happy family, and even if her husband has treated me good, I see nothing but the man that destroyed my home and hurt my dad. This last weekend, I went to her house and told her that it's not healthy for me to be at her house because it hurts me to see her that happy, and I can't. I also talked about the times that she's missed events because it wasn't her custodial time, so I let her know that I'm never coming back. I also said that as long as she is in the family, we can't have a relationship because I'm afraid they'll make her choose and she'll pick them over me like other times and I'll be hurt again. She started crying and said that it wasn't the message she was trying to send. She said she never meant to make me feel cast aside and that she was picking them over me. She said that I can't do that because I'm her baby, but I told her that this isn't her choice to make. She's called me every day, saying that she hasn't been capable of sleeping and wants to see me and talk. Her husband and kids are calling me the jerk for making her feel guilty for something unintentional. But I made my choice and my dad has my back. Even if you sometimes need the fire, you've got to keep your distance for your safety and not get burned. Not the jerk. You're handling this hurt in a very mature way. Kudos for that. When she suddenly realizes you were cutting ties to her because of her behavior, that's when she suddenly decides that you're her baby and she never meant to treat you that way. Did she never realize how shunned you'd feel if she didn't show up to so many of your life events? She seems pretty selfish, cheating on your dad, then the way she treats her stepkids. I feel for you. Not the jerk. She made her choice, repeatedly, to pick her stepkids over you. You cannot control what others do, but you can control your response to those actions. All the best. I have no time for cheats, so I have less than 0 sympathy for your mother and her new husband. Not the jerk. When in doubt, pay attention to her actions, not her words. She talks a good game, but her years of treating you like her last priority have caught up with her. Don't let your mom or her family gaslight you into believing that you're wrong or that you have to accept it. You have every right to feel that way, and it reflects on her failure as a mother and a wife, not on you or your dad. Kudos to you for putting yourself first. Your mom should be proud, as you probably learned that from her. Karen demands my seat at the movie theater. I recently went to go see a movie by myself. The row I was sitting in had about 8 seats, but only 3 were occupied. I sat alone about 2 seats away from a couple who was sitting at the end of the row. A family of 5 comes up to me asking if I could move down 2 seats next to the couple. Their reasoning for this was because if I just moved down a couple seats, then there would be enough seats to where they could all sit together. I respectfully declined, telling them that I chose to sit here, and if they wanted to sit together, they should have just bought seats on a different row. They asked me one more time if I could move seats, and when I declined again, they started to get aggressive. The mom of the family got all up in my face, saying how I was blowing this out of proportion, and that moving down a few seats won't ruin my enjoyment of the movie. I was taken aback by the rudeness of the mother, and told her that if she wanted her family to all sit next to each other, they should have bought the right seats for that instead of demanding me to move away from the spot I paid for to accommodate to their needs. She called me stubborn and inconsiderate and a jerk and stormed off with her husband and kids. After the movie, the couple I mentioned earlier came up to me in front of maybe a dozen people and told me how much of an inconsiderate jerk I am and that moving down a couple seats was not a big deal at all. I stood by what I said, and they proceeded to call me selfish and insensitive. I later called my friend and told her about the whole situation, and she took the family's side on it. I seriously don't know how I was being selfish or inconsiderate by doing this. Am I the jerk? Edit. For anyone wondering, The seats that the family were requesting to sit in were definitely not the only seats in the theater, though we were on a very good row. I went to see a movie that had been put back in theaters and wanted to get a good laugh out of how bad it was. There were maybe 5 people in the theater, excluding me, the family, and the couple. What? Not the jerk at all. This reminds me of the posts that come up occasionally about airplane seats. Another person or family's lack of planning and/or timeliness does not make it your problem. Any person who says different can just buzz off. If they want seats together, they can show their stupid selves up early to the movie to get them. Never let someone else's laziness or lack of attention to anything make you feel bad. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the angry mother? Please let us know. Sometimes we need to pick and choose our battles. I have to pay for that 10-cent personal call charge? Done. Back in the days before unlimited mobile phone calling plans and long distance, I had a company-paid flip phone. There were all kinds of fussy rules attached to it. No texting, even though texting was free. No long-distance calls, with one exception, as I'll explain below. No special ringtones, and no using the camera. Like I said, fussy rules. The one exception to the no long-distance call rule was for travel. In my job, I rarely would have to travel to a different calling area, i.e. roaming. But if I did, I was permitted 1 long-distance call per day to call home. That's it. So the day came when I had to travel and stay overnight in a hotel for work. When I arrived at the hotel, I called my wife to let her know I arrived and spent a couple of minutes talking to my kids. Got some supper, did some work in front of the TV in the hotel room, and went to bed. The next day, while at the conference I was attending, I got a call from my home office. As I was in a large hotel, the call dropped, so I had to call back. Didn't think anything of it. Went back to my session and enjoyed the speaker. Later, after I got back to the hotel, I called home to say goodnight to the kids. I got the answering machine and left a message. Didn't think anything of that either. The next day, I returned and went on with my life. At the end of the month, I got a call from finance. Brother P, it's finance supervisor. I'm just reviewing your latest cell phone bill, and it shows an unauthorized long-distance call. Really? When was the date? April 3rd. You made a call to my office number at 9:20 a.m., then another one to my home number at 6:15 p.m. Oh yeah, that's when I was at a conference. The first call was to me from the office, but I got cut off and had to call back. I called home from the hotel later. So, how would you like to reimburse us for the call? I beg your pardon? The second call. You have to reimburse us for the unauthorized long-distance call. You have an expense claim from the conference in, so I can deduct it from that, or you can pay directly. How much are we talking about? 10 cents. 10 cents? 10 cents. Would you like that deducted from your expense claim? I thought I was being punked. Seriously. I sat in stunned silence for a few moments. No, you know what? I'll pay you directly, I said, and wished the supervisor a pleasant day. I opened my drawer where I had some spare change, took 2 nickels, taped them to a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, and wrote, "For cell phone charge," and my name. I then took a company envelope, addressed it to the finance office, in a different building, walking distance away, folded the sheet of paper, and put it in the envelope. I put the envelope in the outgoing mail tray, the postage for which would be paid by the company. A few days later, I got a call from the comptroller herself, 3 pay grades above me, and usually wouldn't interact with someone on my level. Apparently, the supervisor complained about me. What's with the nickels? I explained the situation, told her the supervisor had insisted that I pay the 10-cent charge, and I complied. She laughed out loud. The paper, envelope, and postage had cost the company more than what they recovered. The following month, the finance department updated their cell phone policy. From then on, only long-distance charges in excess of $10 had to be reimbursed. Am I the jerk for canceling our trip after my fiancé decided to bring her son? I, 33, male, have been with Natalie, who's 32, for 2 years. We're getting married soon, and she shares custody of her 10-year-old son with her ex-husband. Ever since her ex-husband got sick, Natalie kept bringing her son over more often. Sometimes her mom would take him due to work, etc. We've been having issues because of that, because Natalie has to bring my stepson with us wherever we go. We started going out less and less. Since it's been a month since we've gone out, and since her ex has gotten better, I've arranged for a trip to the beach for the weekend. It's supposed to be a couple's getaway. She was excited for it and prepared for everything. The night before the trip, she comes up to me and says, "Hey, Tom is sick again, and he asked if I can take Taylor to spend the weekend with us. I was gobsmacked. I asked what she told him, and she said that she agreed. She then proceeded to tell me that she'd like to take Taylor with us to the beach. I got upset and told her to not bother because the trip was officially canceled. She looked at me shocked, but I told her she shouldn't act shocked and surprised after she successfully ruined yet another opportunity for us to have quality alone time together. She went on about how she couldn't believe that I would expect her to ditch her son since her mom was busy as well and getting a babysitter wasn't on the table. I just shrugged and told her it was done. Then I walked out. I went with the guys instead, and she's been upset with me about it, saying I could have just agreed to let my stepson Taylor come with us, and we would have at least had some family time together while Tom gets better. She said I was the one who messed up. Am I the jerk? Edit info, because I feel like this has gone into a whole different direction. Folks here need to chill out. Nowhere in my post did I mention not being ready or accepting to be a step-parent. Trust me, I am ready, and so far have been nothing but understanding and patient. I love my stepson and consider him as my own, but, and read this part carefully, my problem is with his mom constantly changing plans last minute and not even asking if that's okay with me. And yes, I had to go out with the guys instead. Didn't know what else to do since she obviously wanted some space from me for the weekend, which is alright with me by the way. I'm not mad about that at all. I just appreciated if she had been a little bit more considerate of my thoughts and opinions. You're the jerk. You marry a woman, you accept her family. She has a son, that's her family. Now it's yours. Get over it or break up. Those are your options. Oh man, I can't believe this chick I'm dating actually expects me to be cool with her hanging out with her own son. Am I the jerk? Oh, for goodness sake. She didn't change the plan because she wanted to. Her ex got sick. Just what exactly did you expect her to do in this situation? Drop him off at the orphanage? Leave him home alone? You're the jerk. You said in a comment that you love her son like your own. Did you call your family to see if anyone could watch him? Yeah, OP, I think you're missing the point on multiple fronts. For one thing, dating someone who has a kid means that that kid is going to have to take priority at all times and will need to tag along. That's the nature of the beast when it comes to dating a parent, especially in this case where it sounds like the ex is like long-term sick and has bouts where it acts up. And OP, if it is how it sounds and the ex passes, what do you expect is going to happen? When that kid comes to live with you full-time, you're not going to get quality time like you think you will. Getaway trips might rarely happen. Having time alone together will rarely happen. Once again, that's the nature of the beast when you're dating a person with a kid. If you can't handle that now, when it's more like a part-time thing, you are not going to be able to handle it all down the line. Get out of this relationship. You're obviously not really prepared for the challenges being a step-parent actually has. OP, you're the jerk for not breaking it off. We haven't been out for a month, is normal in parent land. It's completely fine to not want to be a parent at all, or even just not right now. Unfortunately, that means not dating a woman that has a kid, even if she is otherwise the perfect woman. The fact she hoped you could bond as a family tells me she's really hoping you'll grow closer and see him as your stepson, which he will be. Whereas your reaction that you need a break from him after spending more time with him than usual because his actual dad is sick. Let alone that your response to all of this is weekend with the boys, rather than talking through your thoughts and feelings like adults. This isn't going to last. The two of you aren't compatible. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his fiancé? Please let us know. Very incompatible. Time to go your separate ways. Stop resetting my password. I'm in a senior role at a service desk, and like everywhere else, if we see a ticket come in that has already been done or is a duplicate request, we just cancel the tickets and move on with our day. Well, we have this one user who is a vice president, and they are the type of person who thinks the world revolves around them. So they would be the person to send in a ticket, then 5 minutes later send another ticket, and so on until there's like a dozen tickets in the system. Well, a few weeks ago, we introduced a new password policy, 18 characters, etc., with an additional policy that makes you change your password after a reset, and you can't use a password you've used before. And this was a big change, considering our previous policy was no requirements. Most users figured it out pretty good, and even the VP. Now this is where the malicious compliance comes in. With that new password policy, it was also introduced that all tickets must be actioned before resolving them, and you can guess who brought this change in. So the VP went on vacation for a bit, then came back and forgot their password, and like normal, they would send in a dozen or more tickets. Now in the 5 minutes or so between their tickets, we would get 1 to 5 other tickets come in, and it takes about 10 minutes to go through those. So my team and I went through every ticket like we are told to do, and we were counting the number of times we reset the VP password because we knew this was going to come back on us. So lo and behold, in the span of about an hour, we reset their password 11 times. This is when our manager comes in and says, "I just got an email from the VP, and they say that you keep resetting their password." My manager's a good guy, and I remind him of the new ticket policy. He chuckles and heads back to his office, and he forwards us an email with the subject, "Stop resetting my password." In the email, it says they had to change their password 12 times, and they're running out of passwords that they can think of, and to stop resetting their password. I reply all to the email and say, "Due to a new policy of tickets where we have to action each one before resolving it, we had to reset your password a number of times." No less than an hour later, our department gets an email from the president that says, "We have reviewed one of your new ticket policies and believe this to not be the best use of your time, so we're going to ask you recant this policy." Needless to say, we stopped the policy because it was dumb from the start, and surprisingly, the VP actually started sending fewer and fewer tickets. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that if she wants to dictate sleep schedules for our kids, she's welcome to be a stay-at-home mom? My wife and I, both in our early 30s, have 2 sons, an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we are also raising her niece, who's 5 currently, because her parents are in rehab. I'm a stay-at-home dad and my wife works. When we had our oldest, my wife was a stay-at-home mom for a little over a year, and then she decided to go back to work. She makes more money than I do, and I was really happy to spend time with our son, so I agreed to stay home, take care of our son, and do the housekeeping. After we had the 2-year-old, the agreement stayed in place. My wife still wanted to work. My wife has severe anxiety, and being at home with the kids all day would really impact her mental health. Her niece came to live with us 8 months ago, and it's looking like she will stay for much longer, maybe even permanently. She's lovely, but her parents were horrible, so her routine was basically non-existent. I made a solid routine in our house for her, as in chores, sleep schedule, etc., and she's adjusted really well. My wife works 8 to 5. The kids wake up at 7, then my wife takes the 8-year-old to school, and I'm home with the other 2. The 8-year-old goes to bed at 8 p.m., the 5-year-old goes to bed at 7:30, and the 2-year-old goes to bed at 7. A few days ago, my wife told me her niece wants us to move her sleep hour to 8 p.m., same as our 8-year-old. I told her no, because our 8-year-old has more chores, because he's older, and uses the 30 minutes extra he has at night to watch his favorite cartoon without little brother and cousin interrupting him, which they do because, well, he's their big brother. My wife got really upset at me and said that I'm treating her niece unfairly because she isn't mine. I said that's ridiculous. She told me we may someday adopt her and I need to treat her like my own. I told her I do treat her like my own, and a regular sleep schedule is what I maintain for all my kids. It's not like the 8-year-old can stay up later than agreed, or the 2-year-old can skip naps just because he hates sleep. She called me a biased father and a jerk for putting my kids before my niece. I told her if I'm such a horrible father, she's welcome to be a stay-at-home mom and deal with the kids while I go to work. She was really hurt. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. Sounds like you have valid reasons. It's normal for kids to campaign for later bedtimes. It's also normal for parents to say no. Not the jerk. There's a 3-year age difference. My brother's 2 years older than me, and he always went to bed an hour later. I'd be willing to bet your son went to bed at 7:30 when he was 5. If so, you most certainly are treating her like your own. Not the jerk. I don't know what your wife's problem is, but the 5-year-old doesn't need to stay up any later than they are right now. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my sister my unused twin bed? I, 26 female, and my sister, Megan, who's 36, have been in an argument for the past day because I refused to give her my twin bed set for her 4-year-old daughter. In the master bedroom of my house, I have a bed for myself and a nice tall twin bed set that I used as a dog bed for my 3 German Shepherds. The bed is super cute and equipped with everything from dinosaur bed sheets to large plushy pillows in the shapes of bones and T-Rexes. Background. Since the first day my sister found out she was pregnant, she's been demanding handouts from everyone in the family. My sister was not, nor is currently financially stable or able to support having a kid. Instead of getting a job, she mostly guilt trips my mother and stepfather into paying for everything she and the kid need. My sister recently moved back into town and was unable to bring most of her things from her previous house due to her having to leave in a hurry. Story: 2 days ago, my sister came and visited me at my house for the first time since I bought the place over 2 years ago. My sister was expecting me to live in, and I quote, a shack, but was quite surprised to find out I live in a quiet, comfortable home filled with nice things that I take care of. When my sister saw the master bedroom, she noticed the second bed I used for the dog and commented on how stupid it was that I spent my money on a separate bed just for my dogs. Walking through my house, my sister treated it like a shopping trip and constantly pointed out things I should give her for her new apartment that my mother and stepfather are paying for. But she seemed to be most fixated on the bed I use for my dogs. She constantly pointed out how her daughter could really use a bed since they would be having to share one until they can afford a separate one for her. The entire time I stonewall my sister and refused to give her any of the items in my house. Eventually my sister left, disappointed and quite fussy. The next day I woke up to messages from my mother, stepfather, sister's friends, and even her baby daddy, all saying that I'm cruel and that it's unfair for me to not give my sister the twin bed, especially if it's not even being used. My stepfather is trying to play peacekeeper and has offered to pay me in secret for me to give my sister the bed as a housewarming present. I'm not interested in giving my sister the bed, nor any of the other items in my house as a housewarming present or otherwise. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Just tell stepdad to buy her a bed. They will deliver it and everything. ETA. And I just tell them I'm not setting a precedent where she thinks she can just go shopping at my house and expect to get whatever she sees. Not the jerk. It is being used. Your sister can sort herself out and buy her own. That's the doggo's bed, and the doggos get to keep it. Not the jerk. Dear parents, sister has made her choices in life, and you continue to enable her to make poor choices. This is unfortunate as it models poor behavior for niece. I choose not to do the same. The bed is not unused. It is the bed I have trained my 3 dogs to sleep on. My home is not IKEA. Sister doesn't get to go shopping here. This is the final word on the topic. If you bring it up again, expect us to go low contact. Signed, your kid who has her crap together. Customer won't pay, management won't help. In the 90s, I used to work for a delivery company. For some customers, we provided a PC and software to print out labels and upload package information by modem. The contract required that the customer provide a phone line and uploaded the manifest daily so that they could be billed. One customer kept on unplugging or disabling the modem. This meant that every day dozens of his packages would be picked up and delivered over the next 2 days, but because the modem was disconnected, he wasn't getting billed. A trouble ticket was sent to me, and I went for a site visit to diagnose the issue. The customer was nice at first and said that there was nothing wrong, but as soon as I reconnected the modem and started the upload, in the 90s, when there was a screeching of the modem, he immediately got angry and started losing it on me and telling me that I was rude and disrupting his business. I left. He called his sales rep and made up a bunch of lies about me being combative. The sales rep was cowardly and didn't want to upset this customer, so did nothing. He's supposed to speak with the customer to remind of the contract requirements. A week later, the ticket again hits my queue. I go out there. The customer is still pretty rude, but I tell him that I have to do the maintenance. He informs me that he has to use the phone line right then for an emergency. Contractually, the line had to be dedicated to the shipping computer. He tells me to leave, I do. This goes on for almost 3 months with me getting the ticket, customer having some excuse why I can't use the modem, then telling me to leave. I have to visit the customer each time I get the ticket in my queue. The inevitable ticket comes in. Okay, no problem. While he's watching me like a hawk, I go to a secondary process and download the manifest to a floppy. We almost never do this, so the customer was unfamiliar with the other method. I'm super friendly, don't ever connect the modem, and go about the routine cleanup. I leave. An hour later, I upload the manifest from my workstation to billing. 2 days later, the sales guy is really worried. What happened? I uploaded the customer manifest. It's in the procedure manual for what to do when the modem is unavailable. Because of the huge delinquency, several months, close to $15,000, the customer went to collections. The sales guy was reprimanded. The customer later went out of business. Though this was unlikely caused solely by this event, I like to think it contributed. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my colleague after she called me a princess? At my work, they allow 1 day a year for volunteering. My manager said that we should do a river cleanup or something like that. My colleague pipes up and says, "Oh, I know Kate would enjoy that, but OP wouldn't be keen." I hear this from my desk, turn around and ask her what does she mean by that, and she responds with, "What? Nothing. It's just that I thought you would be a bit of a princess about it because of lunch." What she means by that is, I always wash my hands before I eat, and that if the food I have is messy, then I will use utensils. So like a few times I've ordered chicken wings and use a knife and a fork. But let me just say, those bones are clean at the end. She's laughed at me about it before, and I told her that I don't like getting sauce on my hands. This is mainly because it's the office. I don't want to make a mess or be a mess. So I respond, "So because I like to keep my hands clean at work means that I'm a princess and wouldn't do what needs to be done?" She starts to look embarrassed and tells me that I should just drop the topic. But I'll admit, I was a bit annoyed, and she hadn't even apologized. So I say to her, "You're saying that even though you are fully aware that up until a few months ago, I was a carer for my bedbound Nan and didn't hesitate to get my hands dirty, so if you don't want to do river cleanup, that's on you." I then went to the organizer and suggested a volunteering company that I had used in a previous company. Apparently, my manager had heard the whole interaction and then called my colleague over to talk about her conduct in the workplace. Nothing serious, just a slap on the hand. The sign-up form went up for the river cleanup. As I'm signing up, she comes over to me and says that I completely overreacted on something that was just a small joke. One other colleague has said that I could have just ignored her. I don't regret standing up for myself, but now I'm wondering if I should have just ignored it or talked to her outside. Edit. I saw a couple of comments mention that I should let people know that this colleague has made comments in the past, including a comment about using my elderly gran as an excuse to be late to work, and also being hostile when I got a promotion and she didn't. Not the jerk. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. She decided to joke around about it publicly, and you answered publicly and proved to her that she was wrong. I don't see anything wrong with that. The only reason why she's upset with you is because she got called out, and now she won't bother you because now she knows you ain't taking any of her crap and you can stand up for yourself. I bet $10 she's done this before, and the person she did it to didn't stand up for themselves, and she got off scot-free. Am I the jerk for calling my half-sister an entitled brat when she said my mom should give her money for IVF? This involves me, 33 female, and my half-sister who's 32. We share a father with different mothers. Our dad was married to my mom and expecting me when he got her mom pregnant. Mom found out and kicked him to the curb, and things were always incredibly awkward. My mom chose to stay single. Dad and my half-sister's mom got married. For a long time, my half-sister and I fought like cats and dogs. She was always messing with me about how her mom was so awesome and I should choose her over my mom, that my mom was the reason we weren't a real family. I resented her for saying that when her mom was the other woman between my parents. I also resented her because my dad expected me to be way more mature than her despite our barely 1-year age gap. So we weren't great to each other. Over time, the resentment from me shifted from what our dad and her mom did and more about how she would act like my mom had no right to be in my life. She never really grew out of seeing my mom as someone who shouldn't have been there. We both married young and both struggled to have kids. Last year, mom gave me some money to go after more intensive fertility treatments, and it worked, and I'm expecting a child with my husband. My half-sister has still been unsuccessful, and we got into a fight recently where she said my mom should be giving her money too, since we're sisters and she's never tried to welcome her into the family. I was enraged hearing that. For years, she's made it seem like my mom should just go away and leave me to be raised by her mom, and then she says mom should have given her money? I told her that she was an entitled brat if she thought that because my mom owed her nothing after the way she has spoken about her for most of her life. I told her to go ask her mommy for money since she's so great and leave mine alone. She started to argue, and I told her that her mom should do it since she's just the best ever, and if she wants a grandchild, this is her chance. She got so upset, our dad couldn't believe I was so unsupportive of her. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why in the world would someone pay for their ex's kid with someone else to get IVF? Don't turn in your paper. My kid needs to be noticed by the teacher. Backstory. It's June, and in Bulgaria, it's exam time. All of your final exams, essays, etc. are packed into a week or two. This story is about our philosophy teacher, and more precisely, her homework. She gave us the essay final. Basically, you write an essay as your final. It's cool because it's easy and not really read and remember. It's like, what would you do if something, and why would you do that? You get the idea. She gave us that 2 weeks before the turn-in deadline. That exact deadline was 3 days ago. On to the story now. So a week before the deadline, I was pretty much done, so I decided to show it to my entitled friend. He thinks he owns the world. I made a mistake showing it to him. The only thing he said was, "Nice, that looks great." Nothing less, nothing more. This happened in school. The essay was on my Google Drive. In the afternoon, I'm at home and I get a call from an unknown number. My first guess is that my phone carrier is offering me a new tariff plan since mine is close to expiration. Nope, I was wrong. It was my entitled friend's mom, entitled parent. I guess he gave my number to him. Karen. "Hello, are you OP? Me. "Indeed I am. How can I help you?" "Hey, this is entitled friend's mother. He told me that you wrote a great-looking essay. Is that true?" Me. "I guess. I really like it." "Well, can you not turn it in and give it to us?" Excuse me? Why would I do that? "Because my son really needs to be noticed. He's a really bad student." First of all, her son really is a bad student. One of the main reasons for that is because his parents constantly took him for unexpected vacations without studying for a fraction of a second and going with the excuse, "I wasn't in class." Second, our teachers are not goats and don't graze grass. She'll notice that her worst student is now writing a great essay. Me. I am going to turn in my essay, the one I wrote. "You didn't write it. My son did. You stole it." "Yeah, whatever you say." "All right, we'll be expecting it by Friday." A day before the deadline. Me. Whatever. I hang up. Of course I didn't. So Friday passed, Saturday, Sunday, and here we go Monday, today, the 21st of June. I already turned it in. Our teacher enters the room, checks if everyone is in class, and starts discussing the essays. Entitled friend is in the beginning of the list of students, and she goes, "Nice teacher." "All right, entitled friend, it looks like you didn't turn in anything." Entitled friend. "That's not true. I've written an amazing essay, but OP stole it." Me. "What?" Nice teacher. "What are you talking about?" Entitled friend. "I showed OP my essay, and he stole it. It was on my Google Drive." Nice teacher. "Can you show me?" "No, he stole it." Our teacher is pretty good with computers, to be honest. Nice teacher. "Well, he can't delete it from your Google Drive, even if he stole it. It should be on your drive." Entitled friend goes silent and the teacher continues. I'm a bit later in the list. She comes up to my name and goes, "OP, that's a great essay. It's really good. I really liked reading it." She went to everyone from the class. That was the end? Nope. We finished school, and on the way to the bus, I was stopped by a lady. It was the Karen, of course. "Where do you think you're going?" Me. "Home?" "Not until you return to my son his essay and tell your teacher you lied." Me. "If I say that, that's gonna be a lie." "Shut up." "So, just go tell the teacher and everything will be fine for you." Me. "Excuse me? Are you threatening me?" "Yeah, you stole my property." "So what was the essay about then?" "Son?" He can't remember. Facepalm. Friend. "Well, it was about a homeless man." Me. No. "You changed it. You stole it and then you changed it." Me. First, don't yell at me. Second, even if I stole it and then changed it, that means it's no longer his. "Of course it is. Whatever I say is his. My husband is a lawyer. He can take all your homework and give it to my son." Me, laughing. My nice teacher, who noticed this. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave OP alone." "He stole my son's essay." Nice teacher. "He doesn't even remember what it's about. Also, I checked OP's document. It was edited 1 week before the deadline, and your son turned in a blank document." "He stole it." "This is your last warning to leave him alone, otherwise I will call the police." Fine. Ugh. At least give my son an A. He deserves it more. Nice teacher, visibly confused. Sorry, but your son is the worst in my class. That's not possible. Ugh. And she walks away. That's it. I can't believe that happened over a philosophy final when we have 12 other classes he can work on. But no, let's do this over a philosophy and not math, for example. Thanks for reading. Karen insists I share my Nintendo Switch with her brat. This just happened the other day, and after sharing this story with my friends and family, a few of them suggested that I share it here. The scene is a Southwest airline flight. I was sitting in a window seat next to two lovely ladies, and directly horizontal from us was an empty seat, a mom and her son. The flight was taking off. For those who don't know, you are required to stay seated and keep your seatbelts on for the beginning of the flight until the captain says otherwise. I was strapped in my seat and decided to take out my Nintendo Switch from my carry-on beneath my feet. Excuse me, ma'am. I didn't realize at first that the mother in the seats horizontal from me was trying to get my attention. She unbuckled her belt and moved to the empty seat by my aisle, closer to me. Ma'am, with the video game. I lifted my head, but the stranger next to me nudged me as well. That lady wants you to get your attention, the woman next to me muttered. I turned my head to see this woman leaning across the aisle with her hands on the armrest of the aisle seat in my row. Sorry, she began. I just wanted to know if there was any way that my son could use that game for a little while. I'm so sorry, I began. My Nintendo Switch is just really important to me. I don't feel comfortable giving it to anyone I don't know. I don't even let my sister play with it. I was going to continue, but the woman cut me off. Oh, my son's not like most kids, she replied. He's not destructive. His cousin has one of these, and he knows how to play it. She smiled and set her hand out. The two women seated next to me looked at me as if they were also in disbelief. I'm sorry, I said again. I just don't feel comfortable with it. I bought it for me. How old are you? The woman said with a huff, retracting her hand and slapping it in her lap. I'm 25, but I don't see how that matters, I replied, growing exceptionally uncomfortable. Well, she began, clearly sounding agitated. My son is 8. This is an hour and 45-minute flight, and he just wants something to do. He can't see it for a few minutes. No, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm sorry, but I'm expecting you to understand since this is my property. I put my head down and I unpaused my game, as to ignore anything else that she had to say. Are you serious? She seemed genuinely livid. Well, son, sorry buddy, not everyone knows how to share, the woman said to her kid who was next to her. Her kid started whining and kicking the seat in front of him. Thanks for this, she said to me. A sweet kid just wants to share with you, and you're being ignorant about it. Before I even opened my mouth, one of the ladies in my row snapped back at her. How dare you bring that energy on this plane? She told you so kindly that she doesn't feel comfortable with passing her electronics to a stranger. The mother wasn't having it. She's an adult and can't share with a kid for a few minutes of a nearly 2-hour flight? You should have brought something for him to do then, the woman in my row responded. It shut her up good. At the end of the flight, the woman collected her luggage from the overhead bins and said, I hope you're happy going against God's word, not sharing with a kid. Some of the people around us giggled. I'm sure they all overheard the drama at the beginning of the flight. I've come across some entitled people in my life, but this strange lady took the cake. The perfect comeback at baggage would have been to ask the chapter and verse where this was going against God's word. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you have let the kid borrow your Nintendo Switch or not? Please let us know. When someone keeps bugging me to borrow something, I just cough and sneeze all over it. Then I ask if they still want it. Works every time. Am I the jerk for making my boyfriend cry after I corrected him in front of his family? Hi. So my boyfriend, who's 22, and I, 22 female, have been having a really rocky few weeks. I started a new job, and I work with kids, and I'm exhausted when I come home from work, so I normally do homework and then game for a little. My boyfriend has been on this thing about how I never help out at the apartment or with the dog, which is fair. I definitely don't clean as much as I should, but I probably pick up the kitchen twice a week and let the dog out once a day. I always make sure his food and water dishes are full. I work 11-hour shifts, by the way, and I get up at 5 a.m. He doesn't work and plays video games literally all day long. He doesn't wake up until 11, and then he's on when I get home, and he's sure on when I go to bed. We just got back from his family dinner, and he was complaining to his mom about how he didn't know getting a girlfriend meant adopting a kid, my dog, and he was tired of looking after my dog. I told him it's funny he says he takes care of him when his food and water bowl were empty when I left and empty when I came home, and the dog ate and drank like his life depended on it. He said he fed him, but he definitely didn't. Then he said that he does a lot of other things. And I said, like what? Walk him? Take him to the bathroom? Because he has accidents all the time, but never on the weekend when I'm home. He started stammering and saying he did a lot with the house, and I sort of just snapped and told him I could see him on games for 12 hours a day while I worked to provide for us. He didn't say anything, just got up and left. His mom said she was sorry, and if I needed help to let her know. His dad said I'm being too hard on him, and I'm going to drive him away. Edit. I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. I think I'm a jerk because of the harshness and environment this conversation happened in. I heard him crying, and he's complete stonewalling me, and I feel really guilty about embarrassing him in front of his parents. Edit 2. Please stop saying my dog needs to be rehomed. I normally put water in his dish in the mornings and food, just not today because I was running late. My issue is with my boyfriend claiming to do things that I do or he just doesn't do. I walk the dog after work. I run him hard on the weekends. He gets playtime and he's healthy. I promise the dog is happy. He didn't have food for one day, and my boyfriend happened to comment on how hard it was to take care of a dog. So I called him out for not even feeding him the one day I missed it. Not the jerk. Why make the effort to drive him away? End the relationship now and hire a dog walker. Rehome the boyfriend. Keep the dog. Not the jerk. Oh look, another typical 2022 boyfriend. Spends all his time playing video games and being a loser while his girlfriend has to work hard to keep a roof over his head. I swear I'm so done with dating. It's impossible to find a decent guy these days. Every guy I've ever dated was a complete loser with nothing going for him. I guess I could find a guy with a stable job if I was willing to lower my standards and be with someone who's not even attractive, but why should I have to do that? Most of my friends have given up on guys and are now dating girls exclusively, which is probably what I'll end up doing too. Yowza, I see a whole lot of cats in your future. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Does boyfriend's diet consist primarily of Doritos and Mountain Dew? A gamer's got to eat. Am I the jerk for not allowing my daughter to quit competitive dance? I, 30 female, have a daughter, Lily, who's 14. We just moved states, husband is in the army, and she'll be going to a new school soon, and she's deciding on her new subjects. She did French last year and did extremely well, was way ahead in her class, but she spent a lot of time after school studying for that one language. She said she had fun doing it, doubtful, and enjoyed it very much. I need to add that Lily does competitive dance, which means that she doesn't have much time left after school. I did competitive dance as a kid, and I know how hard it is to find time for studying. She came to me the other day telling me that her new school doesn't offer French, but they offer Spanish, and she wanted to take it, and asked me if I could sign her up to private French lessons so that she can learn both languages. I told her that absolutely not, that with her dance, she won't have time for that, and it's too difficult of a subject, taking up too much of her time. She told me that she hasn't been enjoying dance for a while and was too scared to tell me, but she wants to quit dance. She told me that she wants to study languages and work with that when she's an adult. I told her that she won't be quitting dance because she's too good at it, and I already put in a lot of money and that she doesn't need to know other languages. She'll get by with English just fine. Of course, as teenagers do, she threw a fit and ran to her room. She accused me of living vicariously through her. When did a 14-year-old learn that phrase though? And I grounded her for it. She hasn't talked to me since this morning. My husband came back from work and asked me what happened, and I explained to him that she told me that I should consider letting her quit dance, that languages are a useful skill. Apparently, they always look for people who speak languages, and it'll be better than dance for her future. I told him I didn't want to talk to him anymore and called my sister to vent. Surprisingly, my sister took my husband's and Lily's side, and she joked that I should post here if I don't believe her. So I decided to give it a try. Am I the jerk for not allowing my daughter to quit dance and take language classes instead? You're not listening to your kid's interests. She told you what she likes. You don't believe her, her dad, or your own sister. Hopefully you believe countless people who think you are the jerk, and a huge jerk at that. I couldn't believe that. She put tons of extra hours in and did really well in French, but mom still doesn't believe she could have enjoyed it. Just because OP loves dance and hates learning new languages doesn't mean her daughter will be the same. Knowing more languages is certainly a better career path than pro dancing. So 2 people told you that you're in the wrong here and you're seeking people to agree with you. Stop living your personal dreams through your daughter. What is your end goal for her? Something you couldn't achieve? She already told you she doesn't want to continue dance. Time and money, your unfulfilled dreams, all on your daughter's back. Do you know what normal parents do when their kid decides they don't enjoy sport anymore? They allow them to quit and focus on something they love. Your daughter is going to resent you forever. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. Going against the grain here, but I don't think you're the jerk for this. I used to play golf professionally, even won a few big tournaments. Golf was my life, even how I met my wife. She was working an event I competed in during college. Naturally, I wanted my son to follow in my footsteps. When your dad is a professional golfer, you have a world of opportunity that most kids never would. When he was growing up, I spent a fortune on his lessons, top-of-the-line equipment, training camps, you name it. My boy ended up getting a full-ride scholarship thanks to his golf talent, and I couldn't have been more proud of him. We threw a huge celebration for him, and there were even some big names in golf that came to the house. A few weeks before he was supposed to leave for college, he broke down one night and told me this wasn't what he really wanted. His dream was to go into the Army, which some recruiters at his school had tricked him into thinking was a good idea. I can't even begin to describe how disappointed in him I was. We had a huge fight about it. I told him if he makes this stupid decision to never speak to me again. He didn't, and he shipped out later that month. He gave up his scholarship and all the opportunity that would have come with it, so I never spoke to him again after that. As far as I was concerned, I had no son. In 2011, he went missing in Afghanistan. My wife is in denial and thinks we'll hear from him someday. But I know he's gone. I can feel it, an emptiness I can't even describe. Why couldn't my boy have just played golf? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. Force your kids to do things they don't like and they'll always resent you for it. Find out what their passion is and then support them in it. What if their only passion is playing video games and watching anime all day? Then that would make them my spirit animal. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my daughter's tuition after she lied about her major? I'll keep this short. My daughter, who is 19, told me she was going to college to major in computer science. I was ecstatic about this because she's been set on majoring in illustration. For years, I've been trying to talk her out of it. I know she loves illustration, but it's extremely hard to get a steady job from that. I wanted her to do something she could be successful in. I want her to have a wider range of opportunities. As it turns out, she lied to me. She's majoring in illustration. She got some mail about some art exhibition at her school. I thought nothing of it at first because I knew that she was a computer science major. After looking into it a bit more, I found out her work was chosen to be displayed in the exhibition. I was furious. I've spent tens of thousands of hard-earned money for her computer science. That's what we agreed on. I told her she can do what she wants, but I will not support her. She can pay for it herself or get her mother to pay. Or she could begin to pay me back for the money she stole from me interest-free. My wife said I'm being unreasonable, that she's only 19, and asking her to pay for her own tuition is asking too much of her. I don't think it was, as I agreed to pay for her to study computer science, nothing else. I was also giving her a chance to make what she did right. I was deceived and my money was going towards something I had no say in. Now my wife and daughter are upset with me. I'm starting to reflect and think maybe I could have been nicer about the situation. You're the jerk. Firstly, dang. If I had parents like you, I would go no contact real quick. Talk about critical and unsupportive. Second, her work is being displayed at an exhibition. Do you know how big that is? It means not only is she pursuing her passion, she's good at it. I'm also not entirely sure you understand the illustration industry. Stable jobs are the norm in it. One of my friends is an illustrator for Scholastic. He started working for them at age 21 and has been with them ever since. He's now 34. It pays very well and he lives very comfortably, even with 2022 prices. It's competitive and in high demand right now, not to mention the degree can get her a job not only illustrating, but in graphic design, animation, production design, etc. You messed up, bud. You have a very slim window to make this right, and I suggest you take it, because if you don't, she's gone. Former advisor here who helps students find their best fit major. 1. You can no more pick your kid's major than you can choose whom they date and they marry. Sure, maybe her life would be easier with a rich partner, but her heart belongs to illustration. 2. A long-standing interest is unlikely to change. She's been dating. She's ready to marry this career path. 3. You would have wasted your money paying for a degree she didn't want. If she didn't want to study it for 4 years, what makes you think she wants to do it all day, every day for the rest of her life? Statistically, she'd almost certainly have dropped out or changed paths within 5 years. I appreciate you want to set your kid up for success. I get it. If she doesn't find a job, she won't curl up in a fetal position and cry. She'll keep looking and make her way, by and by, just like all the other adults, especially if she has support. Either way, she isn't going to be a computer engineer. Let her self-actualize, and don't offer to pay for the wedding only if you choose a different groom, dude. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. My dad did the same thing to me. Guess what? We don't talk anymore. Trying to control your daughter is a surefire way of losing her. Her work is being displayed in an exhibition. If it were my daughter, I would be sure to have a front row seat. If you keep this up, you're gonna lose your daughter. Apologize and start listening to what she wants, what her hopes and dreams are, then become her biggest cheerleader. Not the jerk. What's wrong, bro? Don't want your sweet little angel to end up waiting tables for pennies or mixing my drinks at Starbucks? All jokes aside, I don't blame you at all. I've paid for 2 of my kids' higher education, and both of them went into fields I approved of. And guess what? They both make over $100K a year now. My youngest has been telling me she isn't planning on going to college and insists on becoming a model/influencer instead. I told her straight up, "Darling, you'll never be the next Kim Kardashian. Your face looks way too much like mine. And if you don't follow my lead and make good decisions, you'll be out of my house the day you turn 18. It helps that my wife backs me up. As parents, it's our duty to set our kids up for success. Fail at that, and they'll be spending their days commenting here on Reddit, competing for who can be the biggest victim, and attacking people like you who have common sense." Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. Could be worse. At least she's not majoring in philosophy. Isn't that what you majored in, Karen? Exactly, and look at me now. I'm stuck in this room with you all day. You want me to leave your pizza on your doorstep without paying for it again? This was, and still is, my personal favorite story of malicious compliance delivered by yours truly. I'm a few brewskis deep, so I apologize for any grammar mistakes. Backstory. This particular customer's address and phone number still haunts me to this day because they either full-on stiffed me or underpaid me every single delivery I ever made for them, and they were on the very edge of our delivery area, 20-mile radius. I was around 20 to 22 years old. I drove a 1988 Jeep Cherokee as a pizza delivery vehicle for a company whose logo is a very popular table game in the US prison system. Tips were very important to my survival as an employee, as they literally paid for the gas I needed to do my job because the company refused to pay gas mileage. But I did the smart thing and kept track and used that for a significant deduction on my taxes. Save your receipts if you use your personal vehicle for work. Fuel, fluid change, brake pads, etc. My manager and I are rolling up and getting ready to call it a night after a dead shift when the phone rings 2 minutes before closing time. It's that family, calling for their 2 veggie pizzas with grilled chicken. The owners of this franchise have full access to the call logs in store, so they know if we don't answer before closing and take the order, or it's firing time. I proceed to drive the 20 minutes to their house to find out they aren't home. They always pay in cash, exact change or less. I call the number they have listed for deliveries. Hear the home phone ringing. Yeah, landlines were still a thing. Ask your parents if you don't know what that is. No answer. Okay, try the secondary number. Voicemail. So I figure I'll go back to the Jeep with the pizzas still in the heat bag to make sure they stay safe and warm while I call the manager to see what I should do. He answers, and I quote, "You aren't gonna like this. They want you to leave the pizza on the doorstep because you didn't get it there fast enough. So they went to the pizza place down the street from their house." Me. On the doorstep? Okay. My poor shoes. My poor shoes that night. I had white DC courts. In a fit of pizza-driven rage, I dumped that veggie pizza face down on their doorstep, and I waffle stomped it permanently into their exposed aggregate concrete and used the box to scoop up what was left to wipe it all over their front door. I left with a feeling of meaningful bliss, and when I got back to the store, we permanently blacklisted that address and phone number. If someone is using their time, fuel, and life to bring you food, just tip them. Had to redo an emergency drill at sea because too much of it was simulated. Corrected the mistake the next time around. I was in the military underway on a ship, and we had to periodically do drills. Think fire alarm, man overboard, abandoned ship, etc. And as we geared up for an outside inspection team to visit, we'd be run and grade them ourselves to see what we'd need to improve upon to pass inspection. We were in the middle of a long patrol, and we were running a man overboard drill. Part of this drill is that when a man overboard alarm sounds, you're supposed to throw a life ring over the side of the ship towards the person in the water to give them something to hang on to and to help mark the position where they were in the water so that the ship could more easily find them to pick them up. Simple enough. As a side note, when running drills, there are various ways to mark what things are off limits or should be simulated. We would use blue tape. So blue tape would go over the real international distress signals for a drill, the long-range radios, etc. So we knew we had to just simulate those things. If we were doing a part of these responses and we saw something with blue tape, we'd kind of narrate, and now I'd use the radio to alert our parent command, etc. So we run the man overboard drill. The ship maneuvers to pick up the fake man overboard, a dummy named Oscar, named for the name of the flag you hoist when you have a man overboard, in pretty quick time. However, during the debrief, the ship's executive officer, second in command, also head of the training team, berates the crew because no one threw life rings over the side as per policy. We would have failed the drill if we were at a real inspection, he says. He said that a bunch of crew members went up to the life rings and then stated, "And now I'd throw a life ring," to the training team members watching, rather than actually doing it. If there isn't blue tape on it, then you can't self-simulate, the XO says, and we're going to run the drill again until we get it right. What happened next was a brilliant moment of a group, without consulting each other, executing some malicious compliance. We run the drill again. Oscar goes over the side, and the man overboard alarm is sounded. The ship had, I believe, 9 life rings on the outside decks. They started going over the side, one after the other. I think we got 8 of them over the side before the XO got on the loudspeaker and said, "Stop throwing life rings," but the damage had been done. I do wish we would have gotten the last one over, but alas. At the end of the drill, the ship spent the next 2 to 3 hours tracking down life rings with flashing strobes, each floating different directions away from the ship on the open ocean. It was lots of fun since we got to maneuver the ship around a ton and just enjoy driving it rather than having to do anything worthwhile. But the XO was none too pleased since it delayed our patrol schedule a little bit. But the good news was we passed the drill and certainly didn't simulate anything, so he couldn't say anything about it. Am I the jerk for kicking my sister out of my wedding when she happens to be a bridesmaid for my fiancé? Me, 26 male, and my fiancé Kenzie, who's 27 female, are getting married this fall. She asked my sister to be a bridesmaid, and they have really bonded over it. I don't speak to my mother, and I haven't since I was 16. Not a word. She does reach out still, but I block her number. When I was 13, I came home early from school to find another man in our house. My mom then proceeded to lie about who the dude was and told me not to say anything to my father. I was always closer with my dad than my mom. She kept buying me things for days and reminded me to not say anything, but I told my dad what I saw. My dad flipped and they got divorced. My mom then decided to live with the guy I saw in our house. Unfortunately, she got split custody, so I was forced to spend time over there with my sister. Usually just locked myself in my room and only came out to get food. I purposely fought with her boyfriend to force my way to live solely with my dad. My sister got upset at my attitude towards the situation and we had a falling out. Eventually, when I was 15, my mom broke down and let me live with my dad full time. My sister kept a strong relationship with my mom and her boyfriend, while I haven't spoken to my mom since the day she drove me to my dad's. She kept reaching out once I was there, but I blocked her, which upset my sister even more. We didn't speak after I went away for college. A year ago, however, she invited me to her wedding and wanted to catch up. Kenzie made me go to the wedding. I'm glad I went though, because we got some things healed. We started getting closer again, and now my sister is involved in our lives. But what happened last week is why I kicked her out of the wedding. I learned through my sister's husband that my sister has a plan to bring my mom as her +1 for the wedding. Her husband is going to be out of town, and she thought it would be fine to bring my mom. I asked Kenzie if she knew about this plan, and she said she didn't, but that I should go easy on my sister because she just wants my mom there, and my mom is pressuring her. But I flipped, called my sister, and she said I needed to get over what happened. Mom was really sorry and just wanted to be there on my big day, and was devastated to learn she wasn't being invited to her only son's wedding, that she thought it would be a fun surprise for me. I told her she knew I was estranged from mom, and that it was incredibly rude and sneaky what she was going to do. Since I could no longer trust her, she wouldn't be invited anymore. Kenzie is upset because I kicked out one of her bridesmaids and thinks I should give my sister another chance. But I never fully trusted my sister after I learned that for years she was feeding my mom info about my life when I specifically said not to. So this was her second time doing something shady. Am I the jerk? Edit. My fiance talked to me about inviting my mom to the wedding. I caught them texting each other. My mom ranting off some sob story and Kenzie eating it up. So I think Kinsey is fine with her coming and might have even supported my sister's plan. She's been pushing me to talk to my mom for years. She thinks it's been long enough, but I don't see value in having scumbags around my life. Once my mom cheated, she was basically done to me. Not the jerk. I'm a wife whose husband does not speak with his mom. She was definitely not invited to our wedding, his decision, and his relationship with her is 100% his own decision and not my business. If I would have invited her or been aware of a plot to have her in attendance, he would have been so hurt and betrayed. Your fiancé should have had your back and respected you enough to be no contact with your mother as well. Not the jerk, but the real problem here is your fiancé not listening to you and respecting your boundaries. I feel really terrible for OP. Everyone around him thinks they know what's best for him, and even worse, they only care about their comfort over his. OP, you get to decide if you ever want to be in your mother's presence again, no one else. From an outside perspective, this is about trust and stability that you had ruined when you were a kid. Your mother tried to steamroll you into silence, and now your fiancé is doing the same. Put your brakes on your wedding and have a sincere conversation with your fiancé, and if possible with a therapist, about how all of them disregard your feelings and boundaries. I don't know if your fiancé is just plain naive, which isn't an excuse to ignore your feelings, or if you ended up with another woman in your life who thinks they know more than you about you. Entitled friend learns to choose their words carefully. Backstory. I had a friend who we'll call Josh, which is obviously not his actual name. Josh and I had been friends since we were young. Turns out, liking Transformers, wrestling, and Hot Wheels makes it really easy to make friends in elementary school, or primary school for those on the other side of the Atlantic. Josh originally was a pretty good guy, but his parents had issues with one another and eventually split up. His mother remarried, and his stepfather began to spoil Josh rotten. Josh began to become a lot more antagonistic, and we grew distant as the years went on, but I tried to remain friendly with him, hoping he'd eventually see the error of his ways. He went through multiple relationships, all of them ending by his hand, but I was unaware as he only spoon-fed me information and made the other party look like they were in the wrong. The incident. Josh had recently had a breakup with a girl who we'll be calling Megan, who I was friendly with before the breakup. Whilst I was worried about Megan due to us being friends, I stupidly decided to check on Josh first. Now, I had let Josh borrow stuff from me, including multiple gaming consoles, clothes, and even a few bits of furniture. I tried to be a good friend, but I didn't know that I was being taken advantage of. We had decided to order some pizza, and Josh had unwittingly ordered from local pizza, where Megan worked. Local pizza doesn't deliver. Josh persuaded me to go and get the pizza. In reality, he basically demanded it because he was too lazy to drive that way. I decided to bite the bullet and just drive my way to the local pizza and walked inside. Lo and behold, I met with Megan, who was on break at the moment. Megan and I spoke about things, and the topic of Josh came up. It was busy, and our order wasn't even done yet, so I didn't mind stopping to chat until Megan began to tell me her side of things. It turned out Josh had been a major jerk to Megan until Megan's brother, Drake, stepped in and pulled his sister out of the relationship. Drake had been a friend as well, but Josh had fed me lies, so I stopped speaking to Drake. I didn't want to believe Megan at first until she called Drake, who corroborated her story. It was a lot to swallow. Josh's breakups began to make a lot more sense now, and I felt sick. Was I friends with a horrible person? I asked Megan some questions, and she told me her side of the story and ended up calling out a lot of Josh's flat-out lies. After the pizza was done, I promised Megan that I'd talk to Josh about this as someone who'd been close to him for years. She thought that maybe I'd be able to get through to him. Oh, were we both wrong. I got back to Josh's and just spoke about things until I managed to get on the topic of Megan. I mentioned to him that we spoke and what she had said. Big mistake. He got angry and called Megan a lying jerk and declared that I shouldn't believe her. I told him that Drake corroborated her story and that I was going through a lot of stress trying to make heads or tails of all of this. Josh, now absolutely livid, screams at me.
Shut up! Get out! You want to believe them? Take your stuff and go.
I was shocked. I tried to say something, but Josh cut me off.
I said get out. Take your stuff and get out of my house. You want to believe her and that stupid brother of hers? Fine. Tell everyone how much of a horrible person I am. Let's see who believes you.
Malicious compliances. Yep, you read that right, dear reader. Compliances, plural. Now, whilst I'm not a big fan of confrontation, I also despise being yelled at. He wants me to take my stuff and go? So be it. I just give him an, "Okay, Josh, I'll take my things and go." So I began to take it all back. Gaming consoles, clothes, and I even grabbed the stand-up mirror I'd let him borrow ages ago. He tried to stop me multiple times, but I simply pushed past him and reiterated his words. He wanted me to shut up, grab my things, and go. So I did. PS2 I let him borrow? Taking that back. GameCube he borrowed so he could play some games he got at a thrift store. That's mine. Taking that home. I took everything that was mine, packed it into my car, and ignored him as he screamed, ranted, and raved at me, threatening to call the police. I simply dared him to, as I was only taking back my things. When I left, I called Megan and Drake and told them what happened. They said they had my back in case things went awry after this. Then I let them in on the second thing he said.
Tell everyone how much of a horrible person I am.
Okay, Josh, bet. Megan, Drake, and I went through our contacts for anyone who knew Josh and told them what happened. One of these people was Josh's own mother, who was absolutely livid at him as Josh was living in his home on his mother and stepfather's dime. The fallout. Josh's reputation pretty much collapsed out from under him as evidence came to light, and Josh's various exes, emboldened by Megan and Drake coming out with their stories, began to spread their own stories on what had happened. Josh's friend circle turned on him rather quickly, finding out how much of a jerk he actually was. What made all of this worse for Josh was all of these stories had evidence, such as text, camera footage, and audio recordings, all of this evidence making it obvious that those Josh heard weren't lying. Josh's mother and stepfather ended up pulling his sizable allowance due to this, and he couldn't afford his home, so he was forced to move back in with them. Josh and I still don't talk anymore, and he had to sell off a lot of his furniture and personal possessions to pay off the debt he had managed to rack up after his allowance was pulled. I've heard that Josh has changed and is getting better, but after this crap he put me through, I'd rather be keeping my distance.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.